video. I'm going to record the video. All right. So whatever I talked, so as soon as out, I'm gonna repeat. But I'm gonna go create a demo folder for this specific one. I'm gonna name it TS demo. I can pull from my GitHub or I can keep it here. I'm gonna create a folder called demo1 for example. All right. So I'm gonna use my Visual Code to open that specific folder. Don't have to, but let me open it from the part. I just want to have in the TypeScript. TypeScript have a little bit of behavior, but you can't have a folder without having a single file. TypeScript don't like that one, so I just created a file empty. So I created this demo folder. In here, I'm gonna do some kind of demo code. So before I do demo, how do we set up the TypeScript environment, okay, from scratch? So I have that PowerPoint for you guys already in my GitHub. You can pull it out. There are a few things that we need to do. First, we need to go onto a browser, go to node.js.org, to this website, download Node.js. For SharePoint peoples, I don't recommend downloading the most recent one. Go download version 10.x.x for SharePoint, because most likely you will be doing some SPFx development, which doesn't, that framework doesn't support the Node version 12 or 11 or 9. It only supports 8 and 10. So 10.x.x, you can get it by going here, other downloads versions, other downloads, and then you go here all the way down here. There is previous releases, and then for Windows operating system, you can download the MSI. For Mac operating system, you just follow your Mac's or Linux version of an installation. So you just go ahead and download Node 10x, for example, and then that is most likely everybody has Windows 64-bit operating system. You're gonna download that one, and then just follow the next with the default installation, which will install npm as well. Since I already installed, I had to go through next, and then once I installed, what I have to do is open a command prompt. And check whether I have a node or not. I could do it here, but I like my Visual Code because I can open command prompt right here on my code editor. So Node.js is installed, and then I also installed Visual Code as a development tool. You can use Notepad for that matter, but I don't like Notepad. You can use Notepad++. If you're learning, just go with Notepad. Don't use this one for the first time if you're doing some, because this kind of helps us do. So I can open directly from here, control and backtick, which is this one, which opens my terminal or view terminal. Okay, but this opens the root ts demo. I can change my directory to demo1 like that, and then in here I can install, I can check my node version with node -v or node --, version, which tells me 10.17. So I installed it a little bit earlier, so the current version is 10.19. So 10.x5. I do some SharePoint or some stuff. That's why. And if we check npm --, version, once you install node, you'll have something coming back, okay, based on the version of the node that you guys installed. So since this is that, so once we install this, the only command that we use from node is npm. Okay, we don't do node is actually what makes JavaScript super popular, by making it JavaScript is made for a client-side development. So it runs on the client. So every single code that we wrote runs on the client. But because of the Node JS, JavaScript is now being used for a server-side coding as well. So JavaScript is not only client-side; it is also server-side using Node.js. So we can run JavaScript without running browser. By just using a Node. The reason why I installed this one is just not to use Node.js, to just use npm, Node Package Management. So I can use npm install or npm I, and then tell how I'm going to do the installation. For example, I'm going to do the installation of my TypeScript globally, so which means I install one and then use it. Okay, so or if you keep on installing every time you create a project, which is a local version. Okay, so npm I -g and then TypeScript. Okay, this will install the TypeScript version. Since I already have it, I already have version 3.6.3, so I don't need to install. So to check, it's a TSC, which is a transpiler command that comes with the TypeScript. So here in this PowerPoint, I didn't mention the first one, installation of Node.js. I already did on the PowerPoint here, on the PDF. Installation of Node.js is there, and then npm I TypeScript -g. It doesn't matter the location. I said npm I -g TypeScript, kind of the same. Or for those of you who uses Yarn, I didn't explain about Yarn. We can use something called Yarn also. Yarn is also similar to Node Package Management. And then if you want to do a local, that is how we do it. But I kind of like to install it globally. All right. So you just do -g. Since I already did, I don't have to. And then install from here, the second one is how to set up a TypeScript. You don't need to do TSC in it, but I'm going to do without TSC in it. We don't need to set up. So I already have TypeScript installed, right? So I can go to my folder here and create a file. So the file for the TypeScript file extension is TS, like TS. Like for JavaScript it's JS. I'm gonna go create a file called demo1 dot my I don't know, ts first dot ts. So my first dot ts, I have a little bit of some add-ons on my Visual Code so that it shows icons for the different file types. I kind of like VS Code icons. You can go download and install that one, but just for a visual view. So here is how we're gonna write TypeScript. So TypeScript is a JavaScript, so which means I can start typing the actual JavaScript like that, var a equals 10, for example. That is how we declare variable in JavaScript. But sorry, I made a mistake. Var a is number 10. So in JavaScript, it is like that, and then I can say that a is equal to a string called specify. This is also fine in JavaScript. Okay, but here, because I'm using TypeScript is kind of enforcing the actual rule, which is saying that nope, you can't assign a string to a text. But this was okay if it was a JS file. This is fine, legally correct if it is a JavaScript. But in TypeScript, it's a compiler error. You're doing something wrong. But if we kind of compile it, it will go through, because this is not really a programming language that goes and fail during execution. But it kind of tells us during a compilation we are doing something incorrect. So this was what was kind of like annoying me when I first learned JavaScript from C#, Java, or different server-side programming language. I came from the background of C++, Java was my second, and then C# third, and then I learned different programming language from there. But anyways, በጃቫ or the C# ምናምን ለምታውቁ ሰዎች ታውቁታላችሁ። int calc, it's int. You know, you can't even assign a decimal number into an int, which is because it is a compilation error. It's not gonna run. So JavaScript again, it doesn't matter. It's gonna go through. So TypeScript came up with this beautiful stuff, so you can't assign. So this is type. The moment you assign, you don't have to tell exactly how to declare your variables. You don't tell this is a is going to be a number ማለት የለብንም, because the moment you assign to it a value, the moment you assign a value to it, that is when it assumes that, oh, this a is from now on a number. Okay? So in TypeScript, it would enforce you use just a number to assign to a. Not only that, in JavaScript, there is in TypeScript, there is also, like in JavaScript, I can also redeclare the same variable and assign something to it in JavaScript. That is 100% correct. In JavaScript, you can use the same variable, redeclare again and again. This is one of the drawbacks for a JavaScript. That is when self-executive functions came out for variable, local, global, anyways, but this is incorrect in TypeScript, and there is a new way of declaring a variable that came out, which is in ECMAScript 6, which is called let, L-E-T. Similar to var, when we compare syntax from syntax perspective. But how do we declare variables and stuff? We're going to go ahead and start it rather than doing like that. So the way we declare variables in TypeScript is we're going to say var or let, it doesn't matter, but I prefer let as much as possible. Var and then your variable name, which is identifier. Identifier is similar to other programming languages. It cannot it has characters and numbers, and there is a special character called underscore and the $sign. Those are the only valid letters that we can use to name our functions, variables, classes, and etc. And we can follow. I kind of like camel when I use method, function declaration and stuff, or identifier for my functions, but I use kind of Pascal for my class declaration. So which means I always start with capital letter when I declare my classes, but that is a choice. Okay, but you can use whatever type of naming convention you guys are going to be using. I'm going to type in a demo, for example, name, and then you colon, and then data type. So we have different data types. I'm going to use number for now, and then I can stop it right here. Var yeah. What the heck is happening here? Oh, below scope, because I'm outside of my stuff. Okay. I can't declare a global variable like this in TypeScript. Okay, I'm gonna go start with my a class or a class blueprint. As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of keywords that we use in TypeScript. One of it is class. As I mentioned earlier, it's the blueprint. So we're gonna use class, and then I'm gonna go person. That's fine. Person. So here I can start declaring variables here. Name. String. So that is how we declare variables. Variable name, and then we put colon, and the data type. In this case, it is string, and then we can do the assignment right here, or we can do assignment wherever we like. I don't have to say var or let in this scenario because it is all the same as long as I'm in the class scope. So this variable name is public by default when I declare it like that, unless otherwise I explicitly say private. Unless I say private, this is a publicly accessible uh, variable. So this is how we type in, how we declare our variables. I have it right here. To declare a variable, we just name var or let, and then your identifier, colon, your data type, and then you can do the assignment in the same line with some value and a semicolon. So this is the way we declare. Or if we don't follow this, we just can say var with any identifier with semicolon. What's going to happen is it's going to assume that identifier can be any data type. It can be an integer, it can be a number, any kind of self or user defined data type, or it can be a string, or it can be any kind of data type. Okay, so it will assume it is any. But the moment you assign a value to it, that is when it gets its actual data type. From there, you can't use it for a different data type. Okay, so that is how we declare and use. But the whole class is like that. So a class is an object blueprint, a blueprint to create an object. So once you have this class person, and then I declare one variable or one property in there called the name, it is going to be a string, and then I can have a method right here, for example, say name. A method is similar to any other programming language. It can return value or it can be a void. So we can do this by simply assigning what type of data type you want to return. So this is my identifier. This is a function or a method signature, which is the identifier with open brace, close brace. If I require, for example, parameter to pass it, to call this function, I'm going to define all my parameters right here. And then I can say if I return a value of type string, for example, I'm going to say colon, which is, this is my function signature. I can use my data type right here. I can say string, for example. This return is a string. So if I do like that, this is still error. It's not completed yet. I have to return a value because this function I'm saying will return some value. Otherwise, if it's not returning a value, I have to say void. Void is the same keyword that we use in Java and C#, which when a function doesn't return any value. So if it doesn't return any value, I don't have to use it. I can simply say like that. So when you hover your mouse, your pointer, my computer mouse on it, the visual code tells me something about that. So it is a person that say name, which is a method. It's going to be void, doesn't return anything, right? If it returns some value, it automatically calculates and knows exactly. For example, if I say here, return 0. Sorry. If I say return 0, now it knows that this say name will return a value of type number. Okay, so it will assume that say name is of the function will return a number. Okay, even if I didn't explicitly say, this is how it kind of knows. So I always kind of skip so that it calculates stuff. But whenever I do my the calling, I know exactly by the intelligence it gives me what is going to be returned or not. All right, so kind of pretty nice. I don't usually type in, okay, because sometimes you don't exactly know what kind of data type, but it's kind of pretty nice, especially with the visual code in here. So I'm going to say console. Console is the same console function for a JavaScript. And I'm going to say name. I'm going to log my name is my name is name, like that. In TypeScript, a new line is assumed to be end of the line for every single statement. I don't have to use semicolon, but I always use to make sure so that. But in TypeScript, it doesn't matter. Whenever you compile your JavaScript, it kind of does it for you. It assumes a single line, one line is end of the line, so we don't have to end with semicolon, but I always end with my semicolon. Comment and the stuff, it is similar to Java and C++, C Sharp, but it is on the PDF. You guys can read that one. But if I do this, how am I going to create my object? To create my object, I have to use the similar to the Java programming language or C Sharp. Okay, in Java or C Sharp, to create an object, we have to use, how did I declare a variable earlier? I was like a var a and then assign a value to it. But when we create an object in Java or C Sharp, we use a keyword called new, N-E-W. I'm going to use that one. So I'm going to say var, I'm going to satisfy, for example, equal to new person. And then like that. So this class has a default constructor. So a default constructors with no parameter. Okay, but I can define my own constructor in here, which can accept a name, for example, and assign that name to a variable or a property called the name of that blueprint. So, but in this scenario, doesn't have anything, but I'm going to go define my constructor, for example. So declare a constructor. All programming language have their own way of syntax to do that. The way we do in, I think it's C Sharp and Java, they are the same. You have to use the class name as a method, but in TypeScript, it's not like that. We have to use a constructor like that. Okay, we have to use the term constructor. Constructor means that it is like person yemil method create yaderakun person yemil method. As I said, if I don't use any scope keywords አሉ የምንጠቀማቸው like private, protected, public. It is by default of this public. I'm going to use it here, for example, name string like that. So this constructor accepts a parameter. Look what happened. The moment I said name string, this shows an error. Why? Because this constructor, the method person expects a string ማለት ነው. So I have to pass in some form of string, which is my name. Okay? It will clear it out. So because this person, which is that class, blueprint, expects a string. So when I pass in a string to it, it kind of clears out. So in this scenario, this is not correct, by the way. This name cannot be accessed like this. Okay? I thought I finished it, but when I do like name, I didn't tab it. I thought I tabbed it. I stopped it right here and it skipped and start talking about something else. When I say name, there is no local variable name in this function. Okay, so to access the same variable in the class label, declared it in the class label, I have to use self-reference like this. This is this object name ማለት አለብኝ. Or if I say name, that name variable has to be declared inside the say name method. Okay, so like in this this that name is that name. All right. So whenever I pass a name, I use kind of similar name, but it kind of knows this is the parameter name, but this is the class name. So እንደዚህ ሲሆን ambiguous ይሆናል። ብዙ ጊዜ እንደዚህ አናደርግም. The way we do is whenever we accept variables, I don't know, that is kind of people uses their way of naming so that this name is different from that name. Okay? Actually, even if it has the same name, አንድ አይነት አይደሉም. This name is different from this name. All right? This is a parameter name. So to assign this to this, ምንድነው ነው ማድረገው normally? Name equals to name little, which is not correct, right? Again, the way I have to do it is this dot name, which is this, equals to name, which is this name. All right? Kind of makes sense? All right. I'm gonna say name equals name. This one is this, but this one is this dot name. Okay? But because እንደዚህ ambiguous የሚያደርገን ከሆነ I will use this way of declaration. I can use in my identifier underscore is fine, $sign is fine. That's why jQuery uses the $sign variable. $sign in jQuery ማለት just actual variable ማለት ነው. Okay? So $sign is fine. But we don't use $sign because a lot of programming frameworks use $sign, as well as very known libraries use $sign. Because when እነሱን library የተጠቀመ developer ከሱ ጋር ሜስ ልናደርግ ይሆናል. So we don't use it usually, but if you know what you're doing, go ahead and use it. But I don't personally recommend doing that. So this testify creates an object called testify. This creates an object called testify, which means that I have an object called testify. I can call a function of the same name from, right, by just saying testify. Sorry about that. Testify dot same name. So because it is public, it is visible, it gives me an intelligence. So I can do this. So whenever I do this, it will log my name is testify. Okay. I kind of tried to write a couple of, like a little bit of code in here before we kind of getting dirty. How do we transpile it? Okay. How do we compile it? To compile, I have some documentation right here. This talks about how to create variables and stuff, but how type assertion, how to convert types between from string to a number, or from a number to a string, and etc., which we call it typecasting, but it's not typecasting in TypeScript. Typecasting is term different. We call it kind of inferred nominal. In JavaScript, I kind of explained it in here. I'll come back about to the intent again. How do we compile it? Okay. To compile, we just say tsc and then file name. Okay. Since we already installed TypeScript, it automatically installs a module called tsc. So we can use the tsc command. Okay. If I say tsc and then my file name, it will automatically convert that file and creates a JavaScript file for me. So I'm gonna go open the terminal, which is where this folder is located. I can right click on that folder, right click in the Z, open a terminal. What happens is it will create open a terminal ts demo, right? I'm inside that, so I can use dir or ls in Linux based operating system. So I have one file called my first.ts, right? That's for both house, my first.ts file only. To compile it, I can say tsc and my first.ts. Okay. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm saying transpile it my first TypeScript, but the moment I start typing the file, I don't type everything. I tab it so that it finishes for me. So it say that from the current location, which is demo1, which is my working directory, እዛ ውስጥ ያለውን እቺን ፋይል እንትን አድርግ ማለት ነው። So if I press enter, what happens is it will create my first .js. It will create my first .js file right here, right? So this is the actual code that we need to run, okay? So here, a class is a self-executive function, okay? So that this is self-executed function, and each method in a class is object-oriented ሲሆን prototype ነው የሚባል, okay? It's a prototype. So it is person dot prototype dot say name, which is equal to and a function, okay? This function represents the say name model, okay? And it will log and automatically will return person. So that everything is going to work. But instead of writing this is very, very easy, okay? ስለዚህ ኦብጀክት ኦሪየንትድ ምንጽፍ ከሆነ በጃቫስክሪፕት እንደዚህ ነው የምንጽፈው። okay? If you open jQuery library, እንደዚህ ነው የሚመስለው. All the methods that you see, it is a prototype extension ናቸው. So if I'm extending jQuery, anybody who extends, have you ever added something to the jQuery? Plugin አይታችኋል? Plugin, you can have your own plugin in jQuery. So I can create a plugin that says I'll give you JSON data, rotate content, HTML content token was there, rotate አድርግ ማለት ቢፈልግ I don't have to open the whole jQuery. I can simply do a plugin. That plugin is የjQuery የዶላር ሳይንን ይጠቀማል ማለት ነው. And then selector that whatever function I'm going to create, maybe ተስፋዬ rotate ልል ይችላል. So dollar sign jQuery selector dot ተስፋዬ rotate ስትለው እንዲያሽከረክር ለምሳሌ. So what I have to do is write I don't need to open any jQuery library, but I can inject my own as a plugin. Okay, jQuery plugins are. jQuery is a library, but a lot of people created a lot of plugins. Okay, jQuery UI is a plugin. ለብቻው jQuery አለ, jQuery UI ሌላ library ነው, which is a plugin of jQuery. So it requires that. So if you use Bootstrap JavaScript, Bootstrap, anybody use Bootstrap? And Bootstrap has its own JavaScript library, but it requires jQuery because everything they created is based on the jQuery library. So they use the dollar sign, selector, dot, and then you call the Bootstrap functions. But jQuery has no clue about those functions. But it is created by another company. jQuery, the Gatamiono, jQuery and Bootstrap, they kind of to the same company, Twitter, no manage Miarago. And that Gatamiono again, የተለያዩ companies for that matter. So that, but if you already have this kind of anten born again, it kind of makes it, yeah, I know what it is. It assumes that this file also has the same identifier person type, not let person class አለ እያለኝ ነው because of the one that so what has to happen is whenever I compile, I don't keep both the TypeScript and the JavaScript in the same location. The way we compile it is we save the compiled one in a different file location. Most likely people use dist or build in mill folder ያደረጉና we compile it and we store the file, compile the file in a different location. But when you do this, it kind of shows error. It's not really an error because we don't use it. I can use Node without using Node. I don't know if you guys know. I can use Node to run this. So I can simply say Node and my first .js like that. So JavaScript runs on the browser, but without having any browser, I can run this, which will say my name is Tesfaye. Ziga mamtat አለበት ማለት ነው. Here we go. My name is Tesfaye. How did it run? Because JavaScript is browser ላይ ነበር run ማድረግ ያለበት. Okay, that is the potential of Node.js. Okay, Node.js ላስተምር አይደለም or ልነግራችሁ አይደለም እዚህ ጋር. Okay, so Node.js, there are a lot of others that goes with Node.js to run the server side code ምናምን. That is how we write intent. But what if I wanted to use, okay, so the moment I type in, I keep on adding stuff in this. The moment, for example, here, I'm going to go create another variable, another name equals new name, new person, and this time make this like that, and I'm going to say another dot Pane. All right. So I have to compile it again. But what happens in TypeScript is I can keep on running my compilation with another option called TypeScript, like that, with another option called minus watch or just minus W, which means that if I'm changing a TypeScript, you keep on watching whatever changes happens and generates the JavaScript right there. Okay, so I'm gonna go do with that. So it started compiling. Of course, if I go open this, I have my mechanism here. So if I go back here and say var surge equals new person, person, this time he when I do this, what happens is keep on here, it kind of compiles, checks errors, and transpile my file right here. Okay, so I keep on running. So there are a lot of tools that does this, especially I don't know SharePoint people who uses SPFx might know Gulp, or anybody else knows like have you ever used any packagings in the Gulp Wuchi? There are others. Webpack. Gulp uses Webpack actually. People use Webpack in Darla, which does all of this intent. So and you scripted out all of your builds, test, ምናምን, rather than saying TS ምናምን ሳይሆን የምንለው gulp serve or ወይ ደግሞ run test dev ምናምን ብለን ነው የምንጽፈው። So እነዚህን people configure those tools in such a way that continuous development ምናምን the same format እንትን follow እንዲያደርጉ እንደዛ አድርጎ ካምፓኒዎች configure ያደርጋሉ። So but that is what is happening. So you keep on writing, it generates this, and the actual generated code is this one. But what if I have another file here? I'm going to call second.ts, for example, and I'm going to have some class here. I'm going to say class employee, and that is my employee class. But what happens is it doesn't generate, right? Even if this is running, it doesn't know my second.ts. This is only compiling my first.ts. Because you can have multiple files, especially when we use classes, one class for one file, so that the file name, the actual, like the biggest thing why TypeScript came to this world is we can't reuse JavaScript libraries. ወይ ደግሞ እንዳለ ነው የምንጠቀመው። If I created a lot of reusable code in JavaScript, what I have to do is copy paste እያደረኩ ደግሞ ሌላ ቦታ ነው የምወስደው. There is not easy way of reusing those. As it gets larger, it kind of gets messy no የሚሆነው. And then the nice thing about TypeScript is you can create a lot of files like that. For example, now you don't care about my employee file, you might class, you might be looking for the person class, and you just want to as soon reuse ማድረግ ከፈለክ you can grab that as a module. Okay, each class and the module ነው የምናስበው. So you can use it in a different intent. So since those are in the same location, the way we do inheritance is the same way. I think it's just similar. We can inherit only one class or one anden class ብቻ ነው inherit የምናደርገው, but you can do multiple interfaces. Okay, implement multiple interfaces. I will come back to the interface. The way we do inheritance in here is not the C# way. I think it is. Okay, not even the Java way. In Java, we say implement this when we do interface. And do we use extend denominator? How do you extend denominator? Okay, so actually am extend denominator, extenders and person, for example. So what I'm doing here is, okay, this employee is a person ማለት ነው. Okay, employee is a person, which means person has a property called name and a method called say name. Other person name number. So it knows because it exists in the same folder. Okay, and the folder is it knows. But once I do this, for example, if I want to do add constructor here, but this constructor, for example, to be an employee, you might have employee ID. I'm going to say name, which is a string, and imp ID. I'm going to use string again. Okay, like that. It knows that the person method has a constructor which requires name. And now it is a must in the ሌሎች programming languageዎች አይደለም. You have to call the super class, which is a person class, and ያ constructor መጥራት must ነው እዚህ ጋር. So I have to call the super by just saying super, which is calling the parent, which is a person constructor, and pass it. So the super expects what? Which is that constructor, underscore name and expect yaраጋ. So I have to pass the name there and do my thing here. Okay. So if I'm going to keep an ID here, for example, employee ID, which is a string, I can say here ID equals imp ID. Okay. And maybe I can do an override. I can override the same method that says same name and add this parameters, this ID and then ማስተላለፍ ይችላለሁ. So for example, if when I do this, I'm going to go back here. I can do this right here too, but I can say var imp equals new employee, and then it requires two names. I'm going to say testify again. Okay, testify. And the ID is just passing 001. Okay. I created an object called, I'm going to stop this one, control plus C stops it, and it says yes, I'm going to stop that one. Watch my. So I created an employee object, which is employee is a person beyond. Okay, so employee is a person. So if I say imp dot, I will see ID, name, and say name. Okay, name and the say name is coming from Katsuparu. So with this, we have an object-oriented programming paradigm, which is how do we access variables? Okay, can I hide the variable name from this? Yeah, I can hide a variable name from this employee by making it private in the parent. So if it is a private, it's only available for all of the methods inside that class. Okay? If it is private corner, that class ውስጥ ብቻ ነው access የሚደረገው. This is access identifiers. We call it access identifiers. Private, public, protected. የሚባሉ ሶስቱ በጣም በየጊዜው የምንጠቀማቸው ሲሆን በፕሮግራሚንግ ላንጉዌጆች for those of you who came from an object oriented programming knows it. So if I want to hide the name, የምትለዋ ካልፈለኩ, the way I have to do is I'm going to go here, make this name private. If I make it private, like that, private keyword, which makes it is available here. Is it this name? I can say it. I can do this one too. But when I go here and say imp dot, I don't see name. Okay, this is an intelligence, but I can mistakenly type it, right? So game ምንድነው intelligence ያውቀዋል. So because it is private, it's inaccessible. Okay, በemployee dot ብዬ access ማድረግ አልችልም. Okay, but even outside of that, even by simply saying if I have another variable var p equals new person, person, that one, and let's say test person, and p dot not accessible. Private meters are private variables, and meters only accessible inside the class. Outside of the class, I'm outside of the class, so I can't access it. What if I made instead of private, protected, like that? Protected. Protected meters are or protected variables or any identifier declared by using protected can be accessed inside the method. Zig access no problem, and also I can access it from here. For example, I can say this dot name. See that? I can access it inside here because I am inside employee, which is person, so which is the same as person. So protected methods can be only accessible from child classes or inside the class itself. I can't access outside here. They got PBA dot, I can't access it, or EMP that I can't access the name. Okay, kind of makes sense. The third one is the common one, which is the actual one, protected or public. If it is public, we can simply skip naming it, but you can say public. Sometimes SharePoint framework kind of expects to name those. I think React እንደዛ አንዳንድ ቦታዎች ላይ inaccessible ነው ይላል. So just give this keywords protected explicitly እንድትሉ ይፈልጋል ማለት ነው. Those are I don't know, some kind of framework preference, I don't know, but by TypeScript ግን ይጉ እንደዚህ ነው. If this you didn't name it, it is public. Okay, so with this I can say imp dot name ይመጣል እዚህ ጋም person ጋም name ይመጣል ማለት ነው. So those are kind of but there is another keyword called static. Instead of name, I'm going to use static company. Okay. Equals MTN, for example. If I say static and then company, I'm going to use Pascal, basically. If I say static company, static is not only like static is I don't have to create that object to use that specific property. Okay, which is Ziga. I created testify, right? To call the same name, I have to first create the person object and then call the method. But because that variable or that identifier is static, what I can do is I can say person dot company, okay, without creating an object. I didn't create any object, right? So I'm just using the class blueprint by class name dot ብዬ any static method or identifier call ማድረግ ይችላል. So if it is static and value ነው የሚኖረው. So every person has the same company ብዬ ስላሰብኩ ነው company የመረጥኩት. Everybody is in the same company, so that is a static value ማለት ነው. So regardless of the employee, I have the same value. This is በጣም እንትን code ስናደርግ especially but server side, I don't know the way we manage and user web request ምናምን ስናደርግ session handle የምናደርገው by kind of using static variable. So that the same user no login የሚያደርገው ፔጆች ጋር ስንሄድ የተለያየ ኮንቴንት ጋር ስንሄድ the same guy in anyways, there are static variables. Those who came from server-side code knows, but if it is static, I don't need to create an object to use it. But if those static variables automatically get. But here, I'm creating it and then I'm assigning it. If I don't change this, there is another keyword that I can use, which is const. Const is constant. Const. Like that. No. Which is to declare a constant variable and a read-only variables. Const is like saying variable, var in the middle, but inside here. 3.1415. This is a keyword to declare a constant variables. Can I create a constant inside method? Okay, I'll check that one. Okay, it's complaining that I can't have a constant variable inside a class. So const is global ነው ማለት ነው ያለበት አውሰደ const ብለን ካደረገን like it's the same as var, but I can't, if I declare the constant variable, I can't say pi is equal to 3.14, for example, like that, because it is a constant variable. So a constant variable has to be instantiated. Okay, it has to have the value, and then I can't do pi 3.4, which is error. Constant ስለሆነ አይቀየርም ያ constant. But there is another one that's called read only. It's similar to constant. Read only. Read only is read only is similar to const, but in read only, in const, to declare a constant, it is a must to assign a value to it. Constant in declare scenario, you have to assign value to it. But if it is a read only, you can do assignment later. Okay, between the two. But if I do like read only company, it doesn't say error. But if it's constant, you have to do implicitly. Declaration must have to be instantiated. Okay, value assign ማድረግ አለብኝ ማለት ነው. But if it is read only, I can do like that, but I can assign only once. Okay, I can assign once and then you can't change it. Okay, that is kind of the two. There are a lot of other keywords that you can grab it in here. Also, earlier I was kind of talking about the compilation. If I have multiple files, how can I do that? Like by just using TSC, compile it. There is a compilation configuration for a TypeScript, which is called tsconfig. It is a JSON file. JSON file is a JavaScript object with attribute value. And it has a lot of attributes that you can set it on, and that is how we're gonna set it. It's called the tsconfig. In that scenario, what the transpiler checks is if you're passing parameter to it. Okay, if you're passing options, it will skip the tsconfig. But if you just say tsc, it will go look for your tsconfig.json. okay, and it runs it based on your TS config. So, but if you kind of notice what is the contents of that TS config, you can get the template of that TS config by just using tsc init, which will generate a TS config with all of that, and required does a couple of things for you, and it keeps the rest open. But I have a TS config that I kind of require. It has some kind of modules, a target, etc. that you need to declare. Those are the TS config. And then the way we do is we can pass multiple files to it. Like earlier, I didn't do this one, tsc, and then my first TS file, my second TS file, comma, separated. But still, I keep on adding files. I have to keep on adding. You know, I can't keep listing them like that. And those are like the identifiers. Those are the keywords that we use. White space and breaks are there. Comments in TypeScript is the same as Java and C#. But if we go ahead in here and do fix my errors, comment it out. I know I'm gonna go to delete this. Is that okay, everybody? It will generate anyways. In the second, I have errors right here because I didn't kind of finish it. The files kind of shows errors in the Z. I have an error because of this. I'm gonna go because I took out the static, so it kind of looks good. If you see red, that is an error. But if I want to do one test config, I can do tsc nit in it. This will generate. What happened? Oh, sure. I made a mistake. I'm gonna go here. TSC. Okay. TSC dash dash init. I just did one dash. It was a mistake. Okay. TSC dash dash init. What it did was it creates this tsconfig.json. Okay. JSON is a JavaScript object with properties and values. Property on the left hand side and values, property and value. So when you look into this, it is not property value. The properties are always in a double quote or single quote. Okay. Values are based on the type. Okay? If it is a string, you have to put it in a double quote. For example, lib is and there's this square bracket, which means square bracket in JavaScript is array. No, square bracket in JavaScript is an array. Object in JavaScript it starts with okay, this kind of kind. For example, here, this is an object. So as you can see here, it starts here and this here. Okay, it's an object. One object, root object. When I expand that, it has this property. The value is an object. So it says compiler options, it is an object, right? Opens, it starts right here, ended right here, okay? I collapse it. Okay, so, and if you see like, it is true. If I like to include this property to it, enable incremental compilation, okay? Target, the right one, ECMAScript 5, which is the ECMAScript of 2015, which works in all the browsers. Okay, if it is ECMAScript 5, it will work on all the browsers. You can get that into the browser compatibility. All browsers. When I say all browsers, IE9 and above and no possible. I'm not talking about IE8 Ziga. Module, CommonJS, there are a lot of ways. None, CommonJS, MD system, UMD, ES 2015, ES next, and the no means for Yarana. So let's might download JS. Strict is true, which enables strict type checking. So it kind of enforces, which is good. There are a lot of is module interrupt. Those are the only one that is intent. But what I'm gonna go add it is a root directory is gonna be my current directory. I'm gonna keep it as default, but there is another one called map. Another one called module declaration base root directory dir out there. This is the output directory. I'm gonna call out directory is temporarily, like when I do ts compile sadar javascript to create የተደረገው the same folder ውስጥ ነው የተቀመጠው. You guys noticed it? So if I want it to go into different location, what I have to do is I can simply say out there and give the folder name. Okay, out there might say I'm gonna go type in, for example, build like that, and I'm gonna comment this line. So the output directory for any compiled JavaScript is gonna be a build folder in the same location. Okay, so with this in mind, I can remove all of the rest. Remove all of that and all the rest, even that, including that. Or I can go to my module, grab my sample. I think I might have demo 1, this config roots. All right, I'm gonna go grab it. Okay, I'm gonna go to the row, grab that one. That is the same as this config. Comment but actually the comments are there when you hover on it. It kind of tells you right there, so I don't have to write them. Right click on them, format it to just make it beautiful. And what the heck is going on? What is the error? That is that is that. There is no error. So I'm gonna go compile it, control backtick, which is this. Inside demo 1, I have to just use tsc. Okay, if I pass in any option, it will skip this test config.json. Okay, when I do tsc, it will run it, which means it will compile the first and the second and create a folder and test build and keeps the files in there. I think I have to create one. Is it? I thought it will create one for it. Okay. So it creates ts build, and then here are the 2 files. I'll see the problems. All right. So it creates a ts build folder and keeps my JavaScripts right here. Okay. This is the second.js. I know. I don't think anybody likes to say this. This is a transpiled for this second.js. Okay, second.js የምትላለችን እዚህ ጋር this gets transpiled to this actual JavaScript. Okay, because of it is inheritance ስለሆነ, so that is how it inherits in JavaScript. Okay, which is dirty. I don't want to go through it. And then once I build my JavaScript like that, I simply gonna copy this, use it onto my HTML. Okay, so whatever I do, I type in TypeScript, compile it into JavaScript, and take that JavaScript out there. Okay, kind of pretty easy to go through. So the other thing that I want to talk about here is the ECMAScript 6, 7. I kind of mentioned it at the end here. Those are like the syntaxes that we use. Let and const is how to declare a variable. The same way var framework is React, var framework Angular. This is okay in JavaScript, but this is the output is gonna be until framework የሚባል declare አድርገሃል አይልም. Okay, I can say var framework A, var framework B. It's gonna work and does that. So, but if we would say let, it would say this throws an error. Okay, so between the let and the const, and there is the big problem between of a var keyword in JavaScript. Let solves that problem. But when we compile it in ECMAScript 5, it is going to be changes to var anyway. So, okay, constantes are like that, already talked about. But there is something called template literal. Template literal, I don't know, when we use string concatenation stuff, we use single quote or double quote. But there is no limitation in C# and Java. Single quote is for a single character, double quote is for a string, but in here it is the same. Single quote, double quote, but we don't mix it. If we start with single quote, we can use, so there is for and then እንትኖችን skip የምናደርገው by just using switching single quote, double quote. አሁን ለምሳሌ if double quote is inside my string, I start with single quote so that I can include my double quote inside. Okay, that is how I kind of use personally. But there is a text skip ማድረጊያ which is the same as forward slash. No, backslash, no. Is that backslash text skip? Skip ይሄንን ለማድረግ. Yeah, I think it is backslash. But template literals are very good, which gives us a backtick, shift እና tab ከስኬፕ ወደ ታች ያለችው keyword ናት. It looks like a single quote, but it's not a single quote. Okay, template literals. For example, I'm gonna go here. This is my second. I'm gonna go remove it because I don't need it. Okay, so I'm gonna go declare a variable. For example, var a equals let's say I provide my HTML here. Okay, I'm gonna type in HTML. Plain text and HTML. Whatever, grab some HTML. I'm gonna put this all in a string. If you want to do this whole thing in a string, what are you gonna do? You're gonna do this plus this plus this plus this እያላችሁ ነው የምትሄዱት, right? አይደል? If I want to save this as a string, I want to save this as a string. What I have to do is go to here and open the brace and say that is the first string. That plus come back here and this line, because that's double quote, use that plus this plus the third line. That is how you do, right? Plus that plus that is string concatenation, which is dirty. Okay, that is one of the biggest hate I have for JavaScript, but string literals are pretty nice. Instead of this, what you can do is you can grab this whole text, which is multi-line, right? Multi-line text, instead of using single quote, you can use backtick and then remove everything. And here I can simply paste the whole string, which is awesome. You know, you don't have to add it. This is a variable string which has the value of this HTML. You know, it keeps all of like it's not like a pre in HTML. There is a pre in HTML which kind of skips the whole formatting and the stuff and the spacing stuff. But this is really awesome. Okay, this saves a lot of content. Most of the time I don't use framework. I can simply do. Why do I use React or Angular? Because of the way to create dynamic HTML, It's not easy. You have to do a string concatenation, and we made mistakes pretty easy. All right. So if you look into this, and for example, and if I wanted, for example, here I have, let's say here I want to add a dynamic text in here that says my name is XYZ. Okay, text. I'm going to say, for example, H2 here. My name is this file. All right. But I wanted this, the whole HTML, to dynamically generate with a value of somebody, you know, right? If the variable is testify, it says my name is testify. If it is Megdas, my name is Megdas. In this case, what I have to do is I'm gonna do plus, right? What I have to do, okay, maybe end that backtick and start another backtick plus maybe another backtick. That kind of works. And that backtick ends there. And if I have variable plus that, and if I have a variable that has a name, name, okay. Instead of variable, name. That's okay, right? This string plus this, okay? What the heck happened? I know. Saying that you can't declare a block label because I'm going to forget about it. Okay? I have a name variable, and here I have a name. But I don't have to do this one either in TypeScript. This is the same as string concatenation, but there is something called termut afabri. String. I have to use the syntax እንደዚህ ነው. $sign, open brace, close brace, and then I can pass variable there. Okay, which means that, and then here name is to spy and it says H2, right? My name is H2. I didn't do a string addition, which is similar to, it says my name is Tesfai. This A has my name is Tesfai Yemil Nominor. Okay, kind of makes sense. So if we compile this, let me compile and say it. Type into C, I know, which is this one is okay. TS config line root to. Oh, damn it! I know the problem. SRC የለንም አይደል? Folder SRC የሚል folder የለኝም. Sorry guys. That was the error. Forget about it. Okay. In name is never used, declared never used. That's fine. But here, when you go to second, which is this, watch what happens. Okay. Var a equal to, because I started with new line, skip on my way. Okay. This plus that plus this plus name plus, okay, all of that in one line. Okay, one line ሆነ እንጂ ቅድም እኔ በእጅ ልጽፍ የነበረው ነው እየሆነ ያለው. All right, so this is a huge deal. This is a very huge deal, especially in a front-end web developer or like front-end developer ለሆኑ ሰዎች. This is string interpolation. Oh, we said interpolate a string. Okay, so I'm not adding, I'm just giving a space, $sign, which means concatenation. Okay, I just interpolated it. This variable is going to be inserted right here. Go back to the other one, constant, that is string literal. እዚህ ጋር example አለኝ. I'm using objects በዚህ ጊዜ. There is another one called arrow function. In JavaScript, functions in JavaScript is we use a keyword called function, and then function name. If you have parameters, you open brace, close brace, you have parameters in there, and then እንደዚህ ነው በጃቫስክሪፕት the way we do functions. I'm I'm gonna go on to the JavaScript and that's it. JavaScript to live this apple. To create a function in JavaScript, what we do is function and then func name and then open brace. That is called the function. This is good, or the other way we do is var fun if name level or if you name level on them the same name at the malchum var if name equal to function. Okay, this is the same as this with different function name. Okay, they are the same. Okay, this is JavaScript function, this is the same as JavaScript function. In either ways, to call a function in the denominator of fun name belan, if there is no parameter, open brace, close brace, semicolon. That is how we call a function. But there is an arrow function in C#. It's kind of pretty nice. It kind of looks like link here arrow function on C#. In Java, do we have arrow function in Java? I don't think we have arrow function in Java, but in C in TypeScript, I can have an arrow function here by saying that say name, for example. Say name, if it is a function, I can say here var say name and then equal to, and then that, and this is a function. So this is saying that function say name, open brace, close brace, it doesn't return any value. Okay, so this is equal to like saying that function, and I don't know, it's kind of easy to write it, and there is a huge deal about this. When you do this, I can access the variables to the class level by just saying this. But JavaScript, this methodology keyword is different from the C# this. Okay, based on where you are saying this methodology keyword, when you're saying it from a function, it is this function or the caller. Maybe when somebody clicks on a button, you're saying this, you mean this button. Okay, it's not the object, the parent object. Okay, so we have to do kind of binding in this ማለት ያ this ነው, which is React ላይ ብዙ ጊዜ የሆነ በጣም confusing. You have to always, whenever you create a function for an event to hire button click ሲደረግ function ስናደርግ, we have to do the binding in the top, because this የምትለዋ is not the class this. It is the button or whatever changing UI ላይ እሷን ነው this የምንለውና kind of a little bit ለዛ when we use arrow function we can say the same this is not the button ያኔ this is the method ነው እንትን የምናደርገው. So we will see this in a real demo in a few. I have 717. Let me go a little bit here. I have another one here. The parameter, default parameters are there for C#. If you don't pass parameter to the function, so for example, I can say I can create a function that adds two number, and the A is a number, B is a number, and return A plus B. Okay, this is awesome. Okay, I'm gonna name it. The function is add. So I have an add function, add emitter function, which takes two parameters and then returns the addition of the two numbers, right? So if I pass in, I can simply say add 5, 6. I will get 11. Okay, this will return 11. Okay, so if I compile this, let me go compile TSC. What happens is my second.js, here we go, we'll have this. Var add is function AB return A plus B. Okay, so how easy it is. That one is single line. It will create this whole function for me, right? And then when I do add 5, 6, it will do add return 11 ማለት ነው። በዚህ ይሄኛው ቀላል ነው። ስለዚህ የቀድሙ so this will return. But what if I wanted this A can be empty? So I wanted someone to call add 4. So if a is not passed, I wanted this a to have a default value of 10, for example. If you pass an a, I will return, or 0. If you say add 4, I will give you 4. If you give me 2 numbers, I will add them. If you just give me 1 number, I will return that specific number. So which means that the default value says Laragno. Or if you say simply or, I wanted someone to say add like that, and then it will return 0. To do that, I can set default value by just using inside the parameter. I cannot do an assignment like that and like that, which makes it A or B can be empty, or you don't have to pass it. I have a default value for that. So when I do this, what happens is it will assume A is 0, B is 0, and it will return 0, 0 plus 0. This is called a default value, and the JavaScript for that is not going to be a little bit easy, because it has to compare whether it is empty or undefined or void or blah blah. Look at that. Okay, so that is the one that works in IE 11 or IE 9 and above. But it kind of works in Chrome as it is. But this is the same as this. Okay, this is a new ECMAScript 6. This is the default values. Spread operator. For example, I'm going to assume there is a spread operator. Array would like to array tag Allah to be elastic, right? I have array A, var array A, which has 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, like that. Do I have A? Okay, I know it's saying that you can't use A and Z. Okay, declare my no. I have array A and I have array B. Var B is equal to, I'm gonna go use 6, 5, 2, let me say. Okay. What I wanted array C is equal to array C like B array C like yeah B. I'm gonna go C equals to B array B plus array 2 2 2 plus array A እንደዚህ ነው ፈለኩት. What if I wanted C to be B B array, which means that in this scenario ምን ይሰጠኛል ማለት ነው? B is 652 6 comma ማለት ነበር. C is equal to 6 5 2 comma 2 2 2 comma 4 5 6 8. If I wanted to do this, what I have to do is I have to use the array method, or kind of concat ምናምን እያደረኩ አሬዎቹን መደማመር አለብኝ. But there is something called the spread operator in ECMAScript 6, which is ... which means B is equal to var C equal to በዛ ... I can do here a ... B 2 2 2 ... A. A is, where's A is not a string. B is number 4 5. You're not kidding me. Oh, because I have here I have variable A and then A B divided. Alright, okay. And that kind of works, okay? So what this means is this is a spread operator, okay? The bin zigas kabana and so this is called what a spread operator is in TypeScript, okay? This makes it really, really easy. Okay, so especially when we work with arrays. Okay, here split operator. The easiest way to use split operator is suppose you have two numbers. Let me study var test equals 5, var test2 equals 7. switch test1 እና test2 variable ላይ ቁጥሮቹን switch አድርግልኝ ብለህ እንዴት ነው የምታደርገው? How do you swap test2 ከዛ ጋር? What we have to do is we have to create a temporary value አይደል? To swap ብናደርግ እንዴት ነው የምናደርገው? We can say test equals test2, that's fine, but I lost the value of test already. Right? So what I have to do is I have to create or assume a temporary variable temp which will save temporarily test and save ያደርግልኛል። እሱን temp ላይ save አደርግና test ላይ test2 ከዛ test2 ላይ temp. Yes. How do you swap two numbers? You need to have a third ሶስተኛ variable ያስፈልገናል። This is the first in programming language መጀመሪያ ምናምን ABC ስንማር swap these numbers. So when we swap two numbers we have to use the third as እንደ ጭንቅላታችን ውስጥ እያሰብን ነው ግን በፍጥነት ስለምናስበው we don't consider ሶስተኛ variable. We saving it. Okay? በጭንቅላታችን ውስጥ እና that is how we swap. To swap two numbers we have to do like that. But what we can do is we can do test2 equals test2 test. That is awesome. That I can swap both like this. This is similar to ቅድም ያደረኩት. Okay? Temporary create አድርጎ ምናምን ያደርጋል ይሄ. Okay? This is the beauty of split operator. And here is split operator or ይሄኛውን operator. You will see a lot of stuff in there. Generics የሚባል ሌላ አለ. Generics are even we can make those objects more reusable in such a way that by defining this is the like በጣም Java እና C++, C# which they actually stole from C++. Okay? Generics is in C++, no? Because C++ ነው የመጣው ቴክኖሎጂ, which means without defining, for example, here an example check አድርጉት. Hello, function identity, it will accept an argument of number and return a number. Okay, so it was just return arg. Whatever you gave me, I can return it. Okay, if you give me a number, I will give you a number. If you give me a string, I will give you. But here, when I create this function like this, I only accept a number because my parameter is a number. Okay, if I pass in a string, it will say no. Okay, you can't pass string to it. Okay, but in JavaScript, there is another data type called any. Okay, which will cause issue. But I can this what is happening here is I can say function identity arg any, which will return any. So if you give me a string, I will give you a string. If you give me a number, I will give you a number. But this is good, but it has a lot of limitations. In JavaScript, it kind of acts as if it is a generic. So I don't have to tell exactly, but what if I know exactly during my execution, I know exactly the data type I'm giving you, and I expect some form of data type, okay? So that technology is included in C# and Java, and we have it in TypeScript. We call it generics, okay? Generics are pretty nice. And we'll see this, especially for those of you who uses SPFx. There are a lot of generics in there, okay? Because it is a framework. So because of framework, anybody who uses React, they use a lot of generics in there too. So React has special properties like props and states. So in React, you have to understand what props is, what state is. Okay. So if you know exactly what props are, what state are, how they kind of communicate, and component, that is, you're good to go. Okay. Other than that, just it is a JavaScript. Okay. But it has a special objects like states and not props. And how kind of things get, because React is user interface create marriage JavaScript. Okay, it has its own file type called TSX or JSX actually, because I'm using TypeScript, and TypeScript is a TSX. Other than that, it's just an HTML and JavaScript. Okay, it doesn't even have services. It doesn't have, but when you go to Angular, it has a lot of additional things that makes it a huge framework. I call Angular framework be or the React is a virtual DAM. Okay, just HTML and JavaScript. Okay, it doesn't have anything to do back in the access የምታደርጉበት የራሱ የሆነ ሰርቪሶች የሉትም. But you can bring some additional plugins. Somebody built it to manage to handle those kind of stuff. Here generics, they are common. So what means is, for example, here function identity, it will accept a type T. T can be anything. Okay, and then that T is the argument that you give me, or the parameters that you're going to send me, is also of type T, because you're calling this function, you know what it is, and then I will give you type T. So this is a type safe, okay, and it is a generic. So it is very nice, which means that whenever I call this, I can say string and pass in a string, and I will expect the string. If I call a number, I'm giving you a number, I'll say this is a number, I'll give you a number, and I'll get back. Not only that, for example, I'm going to define an object, a class. Okay, so a class is a blueprint of a data type, right? So that's the reason why I kind of say new P, which is of type what? Type person. Or there is in TypeScript, there is another one called interface. Which came from JavaScript, the Java and C#. Interface is similar to class, but it doesn't have the definition of the properties or methods. Interface is class with no implementation. Okay, so I had a person earlier. I can have an interface pair. I person, for example, and a person has a name, which is a string. I can't say name is equal to testify because you can't do the definition. You can't assign values in here. Okay, and a person can also have a date of birth, for example, which is, I can say date like that. A date object. Okay, so when I do this, this is kind of I'm just creating a user-defined data type. Okay, so I'm creating a user-defined data type like that. For example, I can say iPerson var p, which is of type iPerson. This is correct, right? Because I have a data type called person. Okay, look in the number in the middle, user defined data type. But when it compiles, or when it transpile, there is no, because this is the feature of TypeScript. This is one feature of TypeScript that you see. Like TypeScript JavaScript, but they're not the common JavaScript that we use in daily basis. It is JavaScript, the modern JavaScript, which most of the browser cannot support. Okay, but interface is the feature of TypeScript to define our own types. Okay, so I can say iPerson, which means that I can assign p dot date of birth, okay, or p dot name equal to testify. Okay, so I'm creating a person p, which has a name of testify object created all right. So but here in this case, I can, where is my PDF? I didn't copy that one. I can say function identity. I can pass in a person. You will give me a person. Okay. I'll give you a person. You're gonna give me some other person, maybe. Okay. But data type again person expect. All right. In that scenario, kind of works pretty well. All right. This is a generics. You can read more on here. For a demo purpose, I can use React. I can use React የሚጠቀም ከሆነ there are some follow ups documentation that you guys need to follow. There is a React CLI that you can use to create a React scaffold the whole React project. As a Java developer, when I use Java to create a project, I used to use Eclipse or a NetBeans የሚባል IDE ነው የምጠቀም የነበረው. So I don't have to understand behind the scene each into different folders, but I know where I use. For example, I want to reference a package. I can use where I reference the package, grab the package that I wanted, a jar file, kind of reference it, use it. But in C# we're going to use Nugget is the right kind of way right now, the way they use. But the old times you can get the DLL files, right? Reference it, that reference. But I don't know exactly. I don't have to understand how the Visual Studio creates all of the folders. I know the folders I'm interested in, but some of the configuration I don't have to know because it encapsulates all of that or hides all the complexities. All the complexities I didn't know. I had a phone. I turned it off. All the complexities about the whole configuration file. Let's up. There is in SharePoint, especially with something called SPFx, there is a project scaffolding. Project create ስታደርግ እያንዳንዱን ፎልደር ምናምን ክሬት የሚያደርግልን ታይፕስክሪፕትም ሲሆን or አንጉላርንም ሲሆን እንደዛው ግን we kind of knows majority of those files. ለምሳሌ I studied up this file right away from here. I know which file is which, why I have this. I might have another configuration file, JSON file, when I do my TypeScript. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go back here. In the TS demo, I'm going to go CD back a little bit space. I'm going to go create a folder called SPFx. I'm going to use TypeScript. That's fine, but I'm not going to use the tool that Facebook creates, which is not TypeScript, React. The Facebook creates, which is React CLI, which is already integrated with this framework called the SPFx. Okay, and I would show you like the TypeScript piece of it in a big project. Okay, I'm gonna go cd SPFx demo, and I'm gonna open that folder. That is some folder no capital the Visual Code. Okay, and I don't need to have computer installed directly in Visual Studio. So I opened a folder called SPFx demo. This is my just empty folder. Okay, so this SPFx framework, it requires some tools. It requires Node.js, as I said earlier. 10.x and 8.x is what they use. Okay, you don't say why, because that is what they support. If they say that is the one that you use. Okay, and then what you can install is, there are a few things that you install. I have it right here. That is for TypeScript. You don't have to install TypeScript, blah blah. Okay, because it will install that one for you. Okay, so you just open your you install Node.js, that version, which is a MSI file. And then there are a lot of other tools that we want. Okay, Node.js is the one. Yeoman. Yeoman is not for SharePoint. Yeoman is to scaffold the project. But what SharePoint uses, SharePoint customizes Yeoman by something called Microsoft SharePoint-generator, which is an extension of Yeoman. Okay, it uses some version of Yeoman to create በድሮ when you create a project በየጊዜው ቴምፕሌት ይሰጠናል አይደል? ኮንሶል ምናምን ከቪዥዋል ስቱዲዮ. If you don't have that template, what are you going to do? you're gonna go get the template. Okay, you're gonna go get the template and add it into your Visual Studio, and then it will pick it up. Okay, but in here, the human is the one that kind of scaffolds the whole project, and the gulp uses Webpack. It is the bundler, and also runs a local web server locally run Yaraga, like in the IIS, or I sometimes use live server. I don't know. Many people use different um, lightweight web server. Okay, not production kind of web server. Gulp kind of does that, and it has packaging by using Webpack. Tatakmo. Multiple files. When you create multiple files, it kind of bundles it. If I'm using, for example, a library called jQuery, I'm using a library from Bootstrap. What this gulp does is it gets all the copies or all the modules that I referenced in my code and bundles it in one huge file. Okay, so it kind of makes it bigger, but it's still fine because it kind of makes a minified. The size is not going to be that big, but if we don't use it, we don't reference it in our code. So gulp and yeoman, and there is another one called Microsoft Generator SharePoint. So we're going to install npm I or npm install. Globally, you're going to install yeoman, and gulp. I'm installing two tools at one line, and then here I'm installing Microsoft /generator SharePoint. If not SharePoint people, you don't do this, okay? Or if you want to just practice React, go install npm install -g. I think it is called React CLI or CLI, I don't know, React CLI or something like that. And then you use that one to scaffold your project. And then, so I already did a gulp yeoman, so which means I can say yo minus version, which would tell me the yeoman version I already have, which means I already installed. I don't have to install. Okay, gulp minus version. Everything to check it, I'm just adding minus version. It kind of gives me. I already also installed the SharePoint yeoman generator. So because of that, I can create a project. To create a project, we usually do from file menamen wizard no admina new nilaler. What is your file name here? Where do you want to save it in this folder? And then you go next. Which template do you want to pick? Console, no, waveform, or whatever template you're gonna get, right? And then go next. And then do you want to deploy it to this? I don't know. And then you go next. That is what is going to happen. But in this case, it is going to be in console mode. Okay. Next minilon, press enter no more than a minute. So we're gonna go yo at Microsoft SharePoint level. Okay. Forget about it. For those of you who are not in SharePoint, the actual goal is just wanted to show you when a project is created. What is your project? I'm gonna keep it the default name. I can give a name for it, and then which version of SharePoint, because I've said I'm gonna use SharePoint as a platform. It doesn't matter. I already have another demo where I go to iTunes music, and that music goes search whatever in iTunes. I use the API from Apple. It brings all music, and I can play a little bit of music because preview is free. It will come all the artist pictures and blah blah. Okay, because I use that as REST API endpoint. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna use the REST API endpoint in here. I may not use it. I'm gonna use SharePoint Online. In this scenario, I'm gonna use my current folder. I'm just pressing enter, whatever is selected. Okay, the blue one is what is selected. I'm gonna go into it. Skip about this. I don't want to give like kind of permission. I'm not gonna deploy anyways. And do you want it a special permission? In Office 365, there are a lot of services in Office 365. If I want to use, for example, graphs, Active Directory, or SQL Server on Azure, or Azure function stuff, I need this kind of permission to access that. Those kind of things you can do it here, but you can do it later too because all the configurations are in JSON. All right. I'm going to use something called webpart, which is widget value or some form of widget from inside out, because this is not, we're not in SharePoint where we develop, we don't start from scratch. The whole HTML from, we have already web running. We're going to create some form of widget. we call it web part, which is that I'm gonna use. I don't want to hello world it. I'm gonna say ts SPFx. That's my web part, ts SPFx. A description is good. I'm going to use React basically. Add, I don't know people, whether people React, Angular, Vue.js. Those are like kind of most popular one. I don't know how Microsoft got that knockout. I have to call. I'm going to pause it. So I'm going to use with React. So that one. So what is going to happen is it will create all the folders necessary to configure the whole project. But really, what I want to have at the end of this code is just one file, one package file that I want to copy it and deploy it somewhere. Okay, because that is, for example, if I'm using Visual Studio, for example, and created a console application, I will get an exe file which has the compiled version of my code that runs on any Windows operating system, 86 or 32-bit, okay, based on the way I compiled it. Okay, here what this does is it will create one file for us so that we can take it to SharePoint. Okay, but when we use Angular CLI, which is NG, that is how we create the Angular project. It will create the whole bundle location, which is one HTML, and bundle the JavaScript, and that is what we deploy it. But this makes it a little bit easier for us to make it effortless to deploy a solution. So we just write our code, give the package to whoever has access to deploy the server, on the server or on the SharePoint online, wherever they name it. Okay, but sometimes we are the guy who writes the code and also who deploys the code. But in that scenario, you're kind of lucky. But in the old times, that is not the way it is. Okay, but at the end, it's gonna be like seamless. You write a code, you don't deploy it. Okay, because they will test your code whether it is sufficient or not. They might reject your code. Okay, that is how it goes. If your code is not behaving properly and take a lot of resource, they will reject it. Okay, so it is up to the administrator. So administrator cannot be a developer. Okay, the Zabon abuse and not a god. All right. But in here, most of the time, you're the guy who writes the code. At the same time, you're the guy who deploys it. Okay. Sometimes, but everything that we write in here is client side, so it doesn't matter. So here, what happens is, in SharePoint, you're gonna go run gulp serve because gulp is already installed. I'm gonna do gulp serve. It will run my gulp and local server and pops up. But I don't want to do that right now. I'm gonna talk about a little bit of like test config. Okay, test config has a lot of stuff that I mentioned earlier. In my previous, I only has the target is 5, the module is next. I don't know what module, CommonJS, I guess is the one that I used. Module resolution, there is a JSX, which is a React, because I picked a React. All of that is, if you see output directory is lib. So if I compile it, it will compile the whole Java TypeScript stuff is going to be set in lib folder. All right. So from the previous little configuration, you can understand what it is. You just simply hover on it. It says redirect output structure to this specific directory. You named it. I can name whatever I like, but in this case it is a lib. But whenever I change in there, I know what I'm doing. Then I have to tell I'm changing the behavior of SPFx framework, which means at the end when it compiles, puts in the wrong place, I might lose it. Okay, I'm not going to change it because this configuration is SPFx. So this is, but it is the same as the previous one. It has some additional stuff in here. The target is ES5, okay, which means it runs in IE 9 and above. Okay, the code that we write in here, it can run on IE 9 and above. The JSX is there. It will also create a source map, which means that if you're debugging your code, I wrote in Java and TypeScript. When I debug if it is a JavaScript, I have no clue what is generated. Earlier I saw that, I showed to you. The JavaScript that was generated is really dirty. I don't know which line belongs to which line, for example, because I always write in TypeScript. Why do I care about those binary files, you know? So when I compile, I want to go through step by step into my TypeScript. To do that, you need a mapping, you know? It will generate a map, that one. I could do that one too. It will create one file. Checks, pass-throughs. There are sometimes types that is not defined, so that TypeScript error in die we kind of define some types. Those are the types that is already defined. ESLint is beautify ያደርጋል. ESLint kind of defines policy based on some rules for our TypeScript. Okay, always go with the TypeScript configuration. Okay, ESLint.json, it's a JSON file. It has the rules. ለምሳሌ single quote መጠቀም አይቻልም. You know, use double quote when you define this. Kind of እንደዛ JSON enter. So እንዲህ አይነት ሩሎችን እዚህ ነው እንትን የምናደርጋቸው. So to beautify. This readme file is for a GitHub. GitHub has its own way of readme file. The file extension is .md, so that GitHub knows how to pick it. So it has its own way of if I want to do heading, it is hashtag. If you do hashtag, it is a heading. Hashtag 1, 2, 3. Here you GitHub editing mode. Okay, this is just a text. Okay, there's a package.json. Package.json is I don't know. I can create the whole structure from scratch by just using npm. You can do an initiate your project, which will create a package.json, which means that if you require any dependencies, if you require, for example, Bootstrap. For example, this project uses TypeScript, right? So what this does is it puts that React uses React. It adds that React in here and the version of the React that is used in this project. So whenever I save this project and give it to you, I don't have to include all the React DOM, all of the dependencies, but I will send you this package.json because you know you can get them, okay? Because those files are really, really huge. If I use, for example, Bootstrap, I don't have to give you Bootstrap because Bootstrap is open source, okay? You get it. So I will give you my code, you'll get the rest of the dependencies, okay? That is how it works. That list of files and dependencies is going to be mentioned in here. Those are JSON files. JSON files are just objects, JavaScript objects, but the properties are in double quote. And double quote no monut. The values are the type of the file. For example, engine. So what is the type of this property? It is an object. Object always starts with, and then if it is an object, it's again property value. This property is a string. That is a string value. Those are the scripts that we run. Gulp bundle, gulp clean, gulp blah blah, and you can do your own configurations. Okay. Dependencies are defined in here. There are dependencies are development dependencies as well as dependencies that we take to the server. For example, if I included jQuery into my project, that is not for my development. jQuery has to go with my code to wherever it goes. In that scenario, I have to mention it in here so that in the dependencies section, so that whoever gets my code has to download that and bundle that jQuery into their code. If it is a dev dependencies, it is for writing a code. For example, like I have a gulp, that's a dev dependency, right? TypeScript, that is a dev dependency. All of the Microsoft dependencies that requires for a development intent. So this is not required. This is not going to be shipped with my code models. Those, even in here, there are stuff that doesn't belong here, actually. I could simply take Webpack, for example. That's not my production dependencies. It doesn't go with my code. Webpack is just to package all my JavaScripts, create one huge file. But I'm going to keep it as it is. It didn't belong here. Okay, it doesn't belong here. I'm going to take it to the below, but different companies configures this in their ways, okay, based on their own policy stuff, okay. This is the package JSON that lock JSON demo to the specific version of the dependencies. It kind of keeps it and also has the definition about all of my dependencies. Okay, so this it's not required. I don't have to give you this. I can only give you this. It kind of locks it. Okay, so for example, the label code frame it locks it to 783. Okay, so at the time you get my code, maybe version 10 is out. So what this does is it goes grabs, like for example, Node version 13 is out. We went ahead and grabbed the version 10.x. That kind of works for us, right? But this, the way you install your dependencies, it would kind of go get the version that you're looking for. If it doesn't exist, then the code is not going to work, okay? But you will take a risk and maybe go upgrade it, okay? Which is upgrading your solution, okay? Your solution, a software that works in Windows XP is not going to keep on working in Windows Vista, right? May or may not work, okay? And if it is not going to work, then the code has to be upgraded, okay? To the proper, because አንዳንድ dependencies ተጠፍቶ ሊሆን ይችላል። Gulp file for the gulp configuration. Yeoman, this is for the Yeoman generator configuration. Git ignore, anything that not going to push it to the GitHub is going to be listed here. This is for GitHub of configuration. Edits config. This is for editor. But the biggest thing that we care about is in the SRC. Okay, all of the codes that we care about is in the SRC. All of our codes goes into the SRC, but all of the dependencies are going to be installed in the node module. Okay, so every single dependencies that I talked about, for example, in here I have here type React, right? Which means that if I expand this, there is types and there is something called types, and then there is a folder called React in it. Okay? Types, React, and React down. Okay, I shouldn't be going all the way down. For example, I could simply go to React. Okay, React folder. You know what I'm ማለት ነው እዚህ ጋር lodash opqlmnopqr. Here we go. React. So all the React is going to be downloaded from where it is and kept in this location. So if I'm using, for example, jQuery, I simply say npm install jQuery, whichever version I want it to install, it will bring it and copy the whole jQuery files in here, some folder yaraga. So that those are modules. If those are modules, how can I include it into my other TypeScript? By just using imports. By just using in C# we use using የምለውን keyword ነው የምንጠቀመው, using a system that ምናምን. In Java it was import, but in TypeScript it is an import again, okay? በተለያየ ቋንቋ the way somebody wrote it, okay? To pull that code of reference, the one that you reference, you have to import it, okay? So in every single TypeScript you have some import, you may not have. Okay? It's not a must to have it, because earlier you saw in my case I didn't import any, right? Because it is on the same location, it knows where it is. But in here, we will say in this RC folder, I have a web part folder, because this index is created because TypeScript doesn't like empty folder in a folder. Okay, if you have a folder, you have to at least have one file. But this is left knowingly. Let's just below no create here. In the web parts folder, I have another folder, SPFx, and that is my web part, which is SPFx. Okay, in there, this is my web part. Okay, when I hover on it, the file is TS, which is a TypeScript. Let's look at it. So it is a TS. The term that I didn't talk about so far is import ማለት ማምጣት ማለት ነው. So import all the React module. Where? From this. ይሄንን hover ሳረግበት ከየት እንደሚያመጣው ts_node modules types React index ከዛ ነው የሚያመጣው okay the TypeScript version of it I'm sorry kind of push it on the way all right so I can go to that specific location and see this TypeScript is there you don't have to explicitly tell that yes okay whenever you import you just import the module which is a class so to import you have to first export ከዛ export የሚል ይኖራል ማለት ነው that is how you do referencing okay the same thing is true for React DOM so import everything in there so that I can access by just React DOM dot እያልኩ ልጠቀመው ነው ማለት ነው React dot እያደረኩ ልጠቀም ነው so somewhere here in the code there is something that calls React dot ምናምን የሚል for example you see that React dot it is because if I didn't reference in the top it won't do it it's not going to give you this method okay this is kind of static no ማለት ነው okay እዛ ውስጥ static ስለሆነ I don't have to declare it to use it okay so react DOM render and then what it kind of expect is the method expects two parameters right the first parameter is an element the element is the DOM which is the document element because in HTML the whole HTML is a DOM but the way SPFx works is there is an area where you can put your web part on okay that is the only area you can play your thing okay I don't know if you guys use web part content editor script editor and change stuff that crazy thing is not going to happen okay because you can't have the whole HTML you guys just assume you have some HTML okay and that HTML element is here this element is already declared in here by just using react element this is a static element that returns an element right so you can see here that's React it is it will return React element will return of type React no this is a type I'm sorry element of type React element which is again geared generic right I'm giving you the type of this so that you can return me that okay so whenever you use your React you're going to pass in your props to it okay my properties are this but in your case your properties have a lot of other properties in it okay in my case my properties are name string blah 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 right so I'm giving you that property so this is the beauty of generics I'm passing in an interface that I declared this somewhere okay it was declared somewhere and imported right here which means it is under the folder called components there is something called SPFx props okay which is an interface so if I go to that folder there is SPFx an interface but it has an additional keyword out there so that it exports from here so that it get imported on a different TypeScript kind of makes sense so that has an interface with just one description in here okay an interface of type it doesn't have anything in it just one property no description which is a string ማለት ነው I'll pass you that and you will create an element for it and assign that value onto the element so and then here render it to that element the whole domain pass አደረግኩለት ማለት ነው this that DOM element this is ይሄ ደግሞ እዚህ ጋር this cell what is that means so I don't even have this that DOM element I don't have a variable called the DOM element did you see any variable called the DOM element no right we don't say it so where is this coming from this that DOM element is declared where and implemented in the parent class of this is the class right this class it extends the base class I don't know where is this base class coming from this base client side web so this is because it is a framework it is coming from the parent this location Microsoft SP web part base የሚባል ሌላ አለ ከዛ ሞጁል እሱን ኤክስቴንድ አደረኩት ማለት every single properties and methods defined in here can be accessed anything protected and public is going address I can access it all right so protected and public can be accessed so which means that this DOM element የሚለው እዛ protected or something ሆኖ declare ተደርጓል I can go to it go to the definition for example if there is that protected read only that is the one that I'm accessing so if I go a little bit up I shouldn't be opening it. It's an abstract class. Okay, I didn't talk about the keyword abstract. Okay, abstract interface class. You guys need to do a little bit of object-oriented programming. Abstract corner, it is between interface and the class mahal na yato. It has some definition and then some there is no stuff with no definition and stuff with some definition. Okay, that is called an abstract class. It also has an extended from some other part. Okay, so this is an abstract class. I opened it from where it is located. Okay, the Visual Code knows exactly when I right click, go to the definition, it goes there, but don't open it unless you know, or ከፈታችሁም ደግሞ ላለመቀየር ማለት ነው. Because those are like kind of system, but it's open, you can access them. So those are like kind of things that is created in here. Let's talk about a little bit. So all of those, like this import, we are pulling module. Okay, module is a class. Okay, modules in there, it's a class. Okay, class or namespace የምንላቸው በእናንተ. What is that? Who was the Java? It was called. It's not using. You put it namespace. Forgot it. Long time now, which Java is after. Yeah, which Java is after. I think 2011 Java code out again. But term forget out. But in C# it is namespace. Okay. In one namespace, you can have a lot of classes. Okay. And then in a class, you can have in a DLL assembly, you can have a lot of classes, a lot of namespaces. So you reference your DLL jar file ማለት ነው. Jar file has a lot of like binary. So you reference ነዛ. C# we call it namespace, but in here the way we import is each class no import የምናደርገው, we call it module. Okay, so whenever but I can have in one file, for example, in here in this file I can have another class. Okay, that's still fine. But the way we do here, when you look into the import, it has a little bit of kind of flavors. There is import in a bracket. You see that import this means that this library or this file has a lot of classes. Okay, out of a lot of them, I only bring me the version የምትለዋን ክላስ እንትን ብቻ አምጣልኝ ያልኩት ነው ማለት ነው. Okay, there are a lot of things export የሚያደርግ ከሆነ we do it like that. Okay, for example, look at this. This is coming from SPFx property pane ከዚህ ቦታ ላይ, but how many modules are coming? 1, 2. So it might have 20. I don't need all of the 20s. I only need this and this. Okay, so that chunk of code is the only one that get copied into my code. Okay, not the whole thing. All right. So የምንጠቀማትን ብቻ ነው reference የምናደርገው. When we do asterisks though, everything ማለት ነው. Okay, and sometimes ደግሞ like import like this አለ without ቅንፍ, without asterisks. It says import SPFx from this, which means that ይሄ ምን ማለት ነው? It is a default export ነው ማለት ነው. If I go to this location in the component SPFx የምትላለች file, it is a TypeScript file. So let's go to SPFx file in the component folder. Under the same file in the component folder, SPFx.tsx, okay, which is a TypeScript file. If I open that, I'll see a default export. Okay, export default class. Okay, so which means that I can have another export, or I don't have to even say export. I can say class person. Right? So which means that this file has 2 classes. So if I say export here, I could, I mean, if I want to reference, I want to get this code into some other location. So the way I have to do is I'm going to go import person from this location. But in that scenario, because it is not default, I have to put it in a bracket. Okay, so no difference. All right, but this is not error. I can still keep it. Then let's make it cleaner. Okay, error item. What the heck? Oh, this is not error. Okay, it uses SAS SAS. You don't have to use SAS. I'm gonna get rid of it. We're gonna use CSS 3.0. Okay. Doesn't matter. You don't have to learn SAS. But if you go to SAS, you can keep on doing your SAS. So SAS is the TypeScript of CSS. So it gets compiled, transpiled into CSS. Okay, but it kind of makes it easier. You can do like a Java object-oriented when you do SAS. We have some time. So this is the file that I'm talking about. Here we have one interface in one file, right? This is one file. We have one export interface. We have another export interface. Because we are using some framework, we have to declare an interface here. I don't have to declare it here, by the way. If I didn't do it here, this is an interface, right? Which is passed to the base class as a generics, because it kind of requires some property that I'm defining. For example, I am requiring here description. I'm gonna say name is gonna be a string. Date of birth is a date. Right? So I can have, this is my property. I manage it. So whatever I'm doing, this is the property I'm giving you, okay? And then do whatever you like. But those people who work in SharePoint knows the web part property. We go to the web part, edit the web part, we go to the property. And those are the properties that we're talking about, okay? So every single web part has different properties. So you define your properties. You gotta define metadata. I can say your name, your blah blah, your list name, select your column, do this, do that. All of that is this property. Okay? So you define it in one web part. One web doesn't have to look like the same. Web part property that is, you define your property because it is a framework. You don't know how it's built because it is a framework. Okay? Already that part is already done for us by Microsoft. We just pass in our property parameters, and then it knows exactly how to render that specific. I don't know exactly. You don't have to say when people click here, show this multi-level, because it will do that for you. All right. The framework handles that kind of complexity for us, but I kind of define those are my properties. Bring it in there. All right. So I don't know which, either text box, I don't know date picker, which one is gonna give me. We will say it all together. But we pass in our property, that is the parent class. So this is the base, the class, this is our parent class, which means any properties in here, we have access to it, as long as it's public and protected. Render, it is because that one is, as you saw, it was what? Abstract class. We have to define the render method the same way we do for React, but this is not for React. This renderer in React, it is called the render, but I will talk about it. Here, this renderer is in the parent class. We have to define it. It's not defined there. So when I render, what I'm doing is when I render, I just want to render a React. I have a React component that I want to show you. Okay. እዛ ቦታ ላይ እቺን ሪያክት እቺን እኔ ክሬት ማድረጋትን እቺን ሪያክት ዲስፕሌይ ታደርግልኛለህ right I will talk about react a little bit but and then react.dam wherever this dam ቦታውን የሚሰጠኝ ጋር እቺን ዲስፕሌይ አድርግ okay I'll talk about that react this is how we create a react render that react wherever it is located okay if I'm building brand new react from HTML I will have an ID div ID with roots most of the time they name it roots. That is where we render the whole dynamic React JSX. This is another override. We have to dispose it, which amounts the React DOM. It is a must in SPFx. That is how it handles it. This is the version of our code. We say version 1.0. It kind of parses it because this returns type of version. This version that parses, there is a method in there that changes this into type of version this is another property that we override which is creating the properties pane. Okay, it is in here. I'll come back to it a little bit later. Okay, this is SharePoint specific Solana. I'm going to call, but what is in here is it's a method which returns this property configuration. Our property configuration is already imported here. Okay, እሱን ነው እዚህ ጋር ኢምፖርት ስላደረግን እሱን ነው እዚህ ጋር override የምናደርገው so that the property pane works properly. Okay, defining that allow doesn't make it work. Okay, but the big thing here is this method which creates the React. I'm going to talk about the React. React ማለት ምንድን ነው? Components. There are a lot of components in React. Everything is a component. If I'm assuming this visual code, if somebody said create this visual code in React, I'm going to start thinking about how I componentize the component wise ማድረግ እንደሚችል so that independent የሆኑትን ነገሮች አምጥቼ ገጣጥሜ መስራት እንዲችል እንጂ I'm not going to write the whole thing from A to Z in one huge file, right? So which one, for example, the top one is header, okay? And then I'm going to have a menu with links and labels, right? So I'm going to have a menu component which has menu ሲባል title አለው, it has a child some menu ይኖረዋል ማለት ነው. So one component left navigation, a huge parent component has some DOM element ይኖረዋል በቴብል መልክ ብሰራው maybe two row, 3 row ከፉተሩ ጋር 3 row and 2 columns 1 2 most likely ይችኛው ከቆጠር 3 column ማለት ነው. Okay, this is the parent root DAMU ይሆናል. And then እዚህ ጋር left navigation, a tree structure is the parent component, and it might have another child component. We can have another child component of itself. እንደዚህ ያለ ትሪውን ይሰራል. So I have to make sure independently የሚሰሩትን ኮምፖነንቶችን ማውጣት አለብን. So when I go here, what this project does is it creates one hello world kind of component for us, which is this SPFx. Okay, SPFx, this is a React TSX corner. It's the same as JSX. Those of you who uses React, create React app የምትላለች React CLI. You can use by just attaching an option called TypeScript. You can generate a TypeScript for you, right? So and then you can generate a component. When you generate a component, it has something looks like HTML. This is not in HTML. This is called JSX. Okay, it's not in a single quote. It's not in a double quote. You see that it is a div. It is as if it is a single an HTML. Right? And then if it is a string, you have to put it in a backtick or something like that. But this is a special HTML called the JSX. This is not a HTML. That kind of looks like a div, but in HTML, class class equals to whatever class name, right? Class equals to whatever ID equals to ምናምን ብለን div ምናምን create እናደርጋለን in HTML. For example, if I want to create an HTML div ብሰራ so div, I'm going to say class div class maybe container like that. And then that is how I do intern. But in here, when you see in the TSX, it doesn't say class, all right? Because this is not a HTML, okay? This is called a JSX. So this is a JSX, which looks like more or less 75% looks like HTML, but class in HTML and in JSX is a keyword for this. You can't use class, right? Because of that, you have to use class name, okay? For is a keyword. For loop የሚባል So you can't use, for example, here, I can create a label, say, and say, for, right? Yes, and does it. I can do this, right? Because label for that. That is, which means የሆነ ID element አለኝ, which is input text, type text. I'm going to say name is test like that. Okay, this label is for this. And the label is name like that. All right. So that sheet and it's a label and then colon and then single line of text. It will give me that one. But I can't use like this because for is in TypeScript. It's a keyword for loop. For loop on. So because of that, we can't use for. All right. So for example, here I use some kind of label here. Okay, let me get rid of the whole thing. I'm gonna go get rid of the whole thing. I don't like the whole. Nobody wants to see this. All right. Okay. I'm gonna go create a div that I'm gonna go even div class name. I'm gonna container. Okay. In that div, I'm gonna go create an h2 some content some heading 2. Okay. For example, I'm gonna go create a label the same way I did earlier. It's not 4 here, it's HTML4. All right. I'm using the tab, which is the beauty of using visual code. I don't type a lot of stuff, even if I type fast. And so I'm thinking, I kind of type fast because I use the beauty of the visual code tab so that it generates all what I wanted to enter. And then here I can say the same thing I did earlier, like that, all right? But also, like when you look into this one, I can use this input, but in JSX, I can't use indexing without the closing. Closing is a must thing, okay? But there are in HTML some HTML valid, okay, no closing, okay? This is in HTML, but in JSX it's a no. All right, I think it's that much calling back in JSX. All right, so when you look into this one, the same type of script, it extends the framework of React, but in the framework of React, that component is expects a generics which will accept 3 parameters: the property and the state is the one, and most of the time we don't pass the SS. So this is the properties, props, and this is the state. Okay, the state is any. This means that if it is empty brace, it means kind of it can be anything. But I can define my own. Since I kind of cleared a lot of stuff, I can remove the one that I'm now using because I said I don't use SAS. Okay, I'm gonna remove that one because I'm not gonna use SAS. But SAS looks like a type of, this is a SAS. Okay, when you look at this, it looks like CSS, but in CSS there is no child parent. Okay, so but here it means that this is dot SPFx space dot container. Okay, that is what it means. But forget about it. Even I can even remove it if I want to. If I don't use it, doesn't have to. I don't have to keep it. I can use CSS in here. Okay, I can create a CSS file. I can reference my CSS file. That is 100% normal. All right, you don't have to learn all of that technologies. Okay, keep your CSS for now until you learn that one. So here there is another JavaScript JSON file here, which is a properties for initialization stuff, for SPFx web part stuff. This is where it creates this element called SPFx, which requires the property. So it's passing this dot properties dot description. Look at this. This dot properties. This doesn't even have the name called properties, but it is coming from the base client web part. And then the description is this description. Where is that coming from? The properties of the web part. All right. It is passing that one to there. I'm not only even what if I want to pass in another one. You see that name, date of birth. I want to pass those 3 into there. Okay, not only this one, I want to also pass in name. The I don't have it. This dot properties, that one dot name. You see that date of birth, blah blah. It's coming from my interface. Okay, it's passed to the other one. I'm gonna go name. I know I'm gonna get error because my React doesn't have the props that matches this. So I have to tell the React to expect such kind of data type. Okay, I'm giving you number, and it doesn't know that I'm sending him number. I have to tell him that I'll expect the number. So I'm gonna go pass in maybe date of birth, DOB. I'm gonna say DOB. That's fine. And I'm gonna say this dot properties dot DOB, date of birth, which is this guy. And it's saying that when I hover on it, the React props doesn't expect that. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my here. The React props is here, which is in a different file under the same folder, which is this, wherever TSS, SPFx, TSX exists, which is on the same folder here. This is aware. So I'm gonna go define those two, which is name is the one, which is string, and it was DOB, and which is a date. Okay, this kind of clears our error in here. Okay, so I'm giving you, this is all of the props that I'm passing you. Okay, in React there is another beautiful object called state. Okay, this is a state. It's saying that any, you don't have to worry about care. You can use any kind of state, but no, I want to define my state, what my state looks like. Okay, maybe in the state, when you click something, I kind of change states. Okay, when you click something, I toggle colors and stuff, for example. In that scenario, I can define my own state. I can define it here. I can define on its own file. It's my choice. Okay, I'm going to define it here, for example. State, I'm going to go define my own property. So I can say interface. Instead of props, I'm going to follow the same state like that. And then I'm going to go, for example, state show. I'm going to say Boolean. Boolean is a type of data type, okay, which is true or bit in the matter, 1 or 0, true or false. All right. So instead of this, I'm not going to give you that. I'm going to say I that. Okay. Now you're not anymore any. Okay. You are SPFx state. Okay. The state is this. The property is the other one. Okay. I have defined my states and properties. Okay. In React, the way components communicate is through props, and inter-component kind of communicates through state. Okay. The changeable behaviors stuff, it's state, and there are some kind of methods that we kind of need to implement. Sometimes whenever a new property is changed, you have to, there are some methods that we need to override. There are a lot of them here. If I say, for example, public like that, those are all of the methods. I use control and space, okay, because I don't have to remember all of them, or you already read the book and you know how to, but you forgot, you know, component did mount, for example. What if when I type, I might make mistakes, right? If I don't type properly. But there are like component did mount, component will mount, component did catch. Those are all of the methods that I can override. Force update, a component will update. Those are like the things that I could override from the parent, which is the parent is React.component, all right? Because I can override all of that, or I don't have to. Okay. The only thing that we need to override is render method. A render method returns a React element, which is, this is a React element, okay, and the React element has to be in one div or element to small element. So for example, here I have one div, right? I can't have another div here, which is Ndezi, for example. No, you can't do this. Okay, it has to be contained in one huge div or in one huge. Sometimes you know, I do myself. Some other people do. We do like that. And sometimes what we do is we don't have to div. You know, this is also valid. I have two elements, as I mentioned earlier. I added those two elements inside this element, even if it doesn't have the name. It is an element, okay? Because this is not an HTML, okay? It's a JSX, okay? This is a valid JSX. This is a parent, and inside this there is another element, okay? It doesn't have a name. That's still fine, all right? Unless otherwise you want to use some kind of class stuff, you don't have to. You don't have to use. I'm gonna format it, kind of a little bit, make it okay. I don't have to use it, okay? Just that is to show you, all right? Why do I put div in a div if I don't want to use it? The other thing is for UI, I don't know, most of you, this is SPFx, right, likes App Fabric UI, which is the bootstrap of Microsoft. but I don't like it yet because it's not matured yet. I kind of like Bootstrap. Bootstrap is really nice UI framework. I'm gonna use Bootstrap 4. I'm gonna go grab it from the Weekly Schools. So when I click on here, I'm gonna go grab the most recent one, which is Bootstrap 4. Getbootstrap.com is the same. But you can go wherever you like. I'm gonna go grab the CSS only. I don't need the JavaScript version, and I don't want to package it into my the whole code. I could simply install, and the whole CSS get installed, copied it. But I don't want to do that one. I'm gonna go grab this CSS file, that one. So there is a better way. That is, I'm getting only the CSS. I'm not gonna get the jQuery. Bootstrap 4 requires jQuery, Popper and jQuery and Bootstrap mean.js. It is JavaScript. If I don't use this, I don't need to include this. I just wanted the CSS. That's it. I'm not gonna use their own crazy Bootstrap stuff. If I want to use it, there is a way I can use, or I could create my own using the same CSS. But if you want to use the Bootstrap components, you're good to go. But you have to make sure you have to reference this all three all together. But there is a better way which goes with React, for example, which is React Bootstrap. So if you go to the React Bootstrap, this is actual React Bootstrap. Okay, getting started is here. You're learning here. So you have to install React this, and then, but even if you installed it, you have to make sure you import the CSS, okay? Or if you don't want to do the CSS imports from your local, want to use the CDN. I want to use the CDN. That's what I'm doing right now. That in that case, you have to insert the link CSS, right? Because that part is just a CSS. But I'm gonna go grab that CSS code, which is the URL for the CSS, which is I'm gonna paste here. Show it to you. Okay. It's a MaxCDN, right? The MaxCDN is for CSS, right? This is the CSS one. I'm gonna go grab that, and I'm gonna go to the top one here. There is a way to inject a CSS into the page, because if it is in HTML, you're gonna use link, link href, link types CSS href equals this CSS. That is gonna be in the head section or wherever before your body. Doesn't matter. Okay. But in this scenario, what I'm gonna use is there is an import method for here that I have to do. I'm gonna go import that one. Okay. Import statement. I'm gonna use Microsoft sp-loader. Microsoft sp-loader. From this package, there is something called sp component loader. Okay, that is the one that I want. Okay, will allow to inject CSS into the page. All right, I'm gonna go here. It doesn't matter where it is. I can go directly to this and call that use that method sp component loader dot load css and pass my CSS, all right, like that, and then this will inject my CSS, right? This is in SPFx. So with this, I'll get automatically the Bootstrap CSS right there, okay? Injected because I don't have the whole HTML body but had it been the whole React, simple, easy. You just do the link, okay? The simple React, let me show you, right? That kind of take care of that, and that is that, and that is this, and for example, I already got some properties passed in here, but I'm not using it, right? Okay, in here I'm gonna use the name, for example. The name is this dot props dot prop dot that prop. Oh, I know it. That I have description, I have name, I have data. I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to put the description here. I'm going to copy the same. This looks like a string interpolation, but this is the way React injects the properties into the JSX. Okay, I'm going to use the same thing here, but because I have properties that pass through here, I can use the description here. For example, here I'm going to go simply display the value, because this is an input, right? I can pass the value to it, but in React this is a little bit tricky. I have to create, if I'm using a value, it's gonna say, instead of this, I better use just H3, for example. Okay, that's fine, right? This, that one, and this dot props dot dob, right? But this dot props dot dob is what? It's a date time. It will kind of needs to be formatted in the way that it gets kind of displayed. But I'm going to go pass into it. But whenever it passes that, the date of birth, that is that, the date of birth in there is string. But I'm not passing anything to it. Property I can set a value here. But since this is a component, I'm not using the state at this moment. If I'm using a state, I have to use the constructor to initialize my state, okay? But I'm not using that one. So I'm going to go test it, okay? To test, just open the bro and run this thing, which says gulp serve, for example. I'm going to say gulp serve. What this does is it will compile and bundle and run a web server, open a port at 4321 on local server, and then run some kind of website for me, which I didn't create, which is the framework creates it. And my DOM is this area, okay? My DOM is this area where I add my widget, all right? So when I add my widget, which is this, that is what we build, right? This is my web part. So it says test SPFx, okay? Which is what? It says that is, where is my test? This. It's saying that something is displaying that, right? So which means probably this dot props dot description. That is the one that displays SPFx. In SharePoint, people knows how to edit this web part. There is here edit web part, which has this description. Okay, whatever description you pass in, it will display it in there. Okay, this is, but I don't have the other rendering እዚህ ቦታ ላይ date of birth ምናምን accept ማድረጊያ እነዛን ስላልሰራው ነው። Say information about you, okay? And if there is anything that is goes here, it will gonna go there. As you can see here, this UI, if I inspect and see it, this is an H2, right? This is div class container. This div class container, I'm using the class container. So when you hover on it, there is a blue section area that uncovered, which means the CSS has some kind of a little bit of, if this empty div, there is no padding in there. There is a padding around like 10 or like 15 pixel or something. It is because in here, there is a padding. How many? Scroll. I'm just going, I didn't have that. Look at that. It is coming from where? When I hover on it, it's coming from Max CDN, Bootstrap CDN, that's CSS, all right? Because I injected it, that CSS is applying, okay? I know it's working. If I go all the way down here, it has some layout of this CSS. Shoot. A lot of bullshit. This is 15 pixel, okay? The padding of 15 pixel. All right, that is the for div of container. So the container fluid, and the grid and the flex stuff of the Bootstrap, you can go with that. You're just gonna go learn from W3's course for free, okay? But once I do this one, it is coming right this. But here, if I want to have a lot of properties for people who is in SPFx, you need to make sure you run, you override. That is in the web part properties, which is in the TS web part, TSS web part. This is this method. I have to make sure I added those properties as an array in here. Okay, so I don't have to define my UIs, but for example, I want to go get name and name and the date of birth, for example. I'm going to use single line of text for that scenario. So this is one field. You see that? This is one method. It starts here, ends here. Okay, for those of you who is going to do the same, what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat this 2 times. Done. Okay, I use shortcuts. I use name. I'm going to go instead of this. I hate that, but I'm going to have to code it. All right, because we don't do language. So if you use language localization, which is in Germany, name might be something else. Okay, in Hungarian, name is sim, right? I might say sim. So you don't touch your code, you just do the resource file. In that scenario, you're gonna do a loc there, but I'm doing it for here. We do it in English. I'm not gonna change it into different language. I'm gonna type in your name like that. All right, this one. For example, your properties. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna say here in the top one, it has to match exactly this, which is date of birth, the way it is. I typed it right here. I'm gonna use the same one instead of description. I'm gonna use that. This is my label. The label doesn't matter, right? I'm gonna say this is what date of label is your date of birth. Okay, but it's gonna be a single line of text, but it doesn't have a date picker. That's fine. I can override a little bit here before I pass in dob. Dob is what? This date of birth is yeah, that's the date. I don't know, probably might not gonna display properly, but I'm gonna go. What happens behind the scene is there is a gulp running. Okay, the gulp, what it does is, in addition to running the web server, it also watches my code, builds it, refreshes that page. Okay, so I didn't refresh the page. When I minimize this and go to the web part properties, all of my properties are displaying it here. Okay, so the gulp is running behind the scene. Because I collapsed it, it wasn't showing. But it compiles it, run it, injects it, okay, and it refreshes this page, local web server. It's not. It doesn't look like a SharePoint. It's not really a SharePoint. Okay, this is a local server that looks like SharePoint. So I'm gonna say Tasfai Gari. Look at that. It's coming back, and I'm gonna go there. 2000. Huh, that is cool, right? And it is reactive. Reactive means that the moment I type in here, it's applying to the properties. Sometimes good, sometimes not good. Okay. For example, if I'm doing some form of like REST API call, all right. In that scenario, if you do REST API call, you have to like give me your endpoint. You didn't type, you didn't finish it. Every single time, if I'm doing a REST API call, which will fail. Okay, because I'm not getting it. In that scenario, we might need something in here that says apply. You write in, apply, that will take it. So this is gonna sit in the web part property box, okay? It's not gonna go get changed. Even if I refresh, it's gonna stick it in there, okay? Unless otherwise I delete it. That's what we call web parts, okay? Or widget. Modules, I don't know if you use, anybody used Drupal? Drupal? Okay, Drupal has something called modules. Modules are reusable codes. In the web part minimum ማለት ነው. Or anybody built in WordPress? Ever touch WordPress? PHP? Okay, I did that one. In there, you have to build a widget add-ons in the widget no የሚባሉ. So you add your own. So we purchase those for WordPress. Lazano, it's kind of easy to do those, and even to swing a server. Anyways, widget, menamen, module, whatever, let them call whatever, but we call it web part in SharePoint, all right? But it's kind of widget, build them in. But what if I wanted, okay, this is good. Let's say this kind of works. I want to test it in development. So in the old times, the way we do in SharePoint, what we used to do was take this code, push it into the test environment, test it. Why we don't have to do it? So there is a certificate that already run. There is one certificate that already run, which is part of it. Those are the technologies that we use: Node, Gulp, Angular, and TypeScript, Angular, React, and GitHub is not required. Yeoman, Node, Visual Studio Code, TypeScript is what we used, but I used React as well. There is one additional command that you have to run, which is gulp trust diff, which makes it this web server. This is that it is a varied green, okay, which is the certificate is it is a HTTPS. Okay, this is an HTTPS called file, okay. So which means it is a valid certificate, which means I can serve it to anywhere else, all right, locally. This is a valid trust gulp generated certificate, which means that this web server local can run on SharePoint. Microsoft already created something for us. In any SharePoint website, you just do under site collection underscore layout and say workbench.spx. This is real SharePoint, okay? So when I go here, this is a real SharePoint that mimics the actual local workbench, okay? Because I didn't deploy my code, I want to just check it. Does it display properly on SharePoint, okay? Because I don't know exactly where. So what I have to do is package it, take it to the test, play with it. Okay, I'm happy, go back. You don't have to do that one. You just do it here. Just go to one URL, this, and then drop your web part and see it the same way you do it. So in here, this is not workbench because it's a workbench. You don't know who is logged in. This Office 365, those are like kind of mimicking the Office 365. But when you look at this one really works, okay? This is the waffle menu of Office 365. This is who people logged in. The setting kind of works. Everything works. Whenever I say new web part, I don't only see my web parts, but the out of box or the pre-built web parts are going to be. But I have named mine. How did I name it? When I do here, when I add web part here, locally I only have this, and this is kind of fake, okay? It says TS SPFx, okay? I'm gonna go TS SPFx. This is called find it, or you can search it as TS. That is my web part, all right? I can assign a beautiful icon the same way they did in here. That is the only place I use the CSS of Fabric icon, okay? Or Office Fabric, because it doesn't do font awesome. I could have picked font awesome. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm Microsoft guy. All right, I'm gonna go click that one. That is that. If I go to the properties, that is still works. And D was okay. Your turn to talk. Here we go. It kind of displaying. That's fine, but it doesn't do anything. Just rather than getting this. How do we interact with both with the SharePoint or some REST API? I think we almost running out of time. I have some pre-built kind of codes where it goes grabs some code from anywhere it exists. But there is this framework already has a REST API endpoint calling, which is called which is included into the base client web part, which is called HTTP client. Okay? So I can use the HTTP client, do REST API methods like get, post, put, delete, or any kind of HTTP methods that you want. Okay. Most of the time, maybe probably you use get and post. Okay. And then pass in some headers, or I don't have to. I can go to the HTTP of Apple and get all the musics and pictures and stuff and display it in here. But in that scenario, maybe the Apple might not know exactly, like I have to pass in the headers and the stuff. And that's when I have to follow the headers, the formatting of the Apple. For example, I have to fake the cross origin because I'm calling from a different URL domain so that it gets trusted by that, because they kind of think that somebody is like trying to do the virus, which is service denial ladder gichelado. I can request like millions of requests in a second, right? So that the real request which say do again, because I can take all the resources. Still I can do it, but it is bad. They shouldn't be opening it. It's open. Probably they have all the resources. Maybe they have something that watches that and kind of blocks the request. But in here, the way we do is we go onto SharePoint and grab it and displays it. I have a demo code that I have pre-built in my GitHub here. This by Gary in the repository section of TS demo, and I have this SPFx demo, and in the SRC folder, I think, and here I have this classes. For example, one of the methods that I did was how to get no, this is TS. Okay, that is the one. Go to the components, the TSX. That is the one. So one of the things that I did here was go get all my SharePoint elements, for example. Go get all my SharePoint elements, items from some SharePoint list. The way I did was here. This is to create an item. I have read item, just to read one item. The REST API for that is, I'm not gonna write it because I don't have time. The REST API for that is underscore API with list is get by title, pass the list name and the items, and then item ID, and you can select, do the select, which is OData select, and the columns that you want to grab, but you don't have to do select. And then there is a configuration here, a speech TCP client configuration v1, and there is a header that is passing to it. But you don't have to pass in the header to it because I'm using what here? This craft speech TCP client get method, okay? So that get, it encapsulates the whole HTTP get for us, okay? Or if I wanted, I can use the jQuery Ajax, but I have to reference that jQuery first, and then go Ajax call and follow the protocol of or the syntax of jQuery Ajax ማለት ነው. Or you can use fetch, but I didn't like the fetch so much, but it kind of works a little bit. You have to learn how to pass in all the parameters in the header section, because whenever we do HTTP, you have to pass in header section. So what you expect is a promise, okay? So whenever you do HTTP request, you may get data back, okay? Or maybe there is a network error. Maybe the server is down. So you might not even get an item. Or you might forgot properly name it, probably you get 404, the resource that you're looking for doesn't exist. Or access denied issue, okay, 403. So all of that kind of comes back as a response. But you have to follow the protocol of the HTTP, which is wherever that resource exists, right? Gaz ለመቅዳት ኢትዮጵያ ብር ይዘን አንሄድም አይደል? The protocol is you have to go with the debit credit card which has money, okay? ባዶ ካርድም ይዘህ አትሄድም, right? So there is some protocol, right? So there is a protocol wherever you go, and you have to follow. For example, በመስኮት ከሆነ የምትከፍለው በመስኮት, right? That is their protocol. So ስለዚህ ያ ቤት ነው ያንን ፕሮቶኮል ያወጣው እንጂ አይ እኛ ጋር ሰው ነው የሚቀዳልና ናቅዳልኝ አትልም. Okay, because that is a different protocol. All right, so the same thing here, but this speech HTTP client kind of encapsulates the whole header, because it knows what SharePoint is. From the name, it's SP HTTP client, SP is SharePoint, which is specifically done for SharePoint, a REST API. If I'm calling a different REST API, I would have gone with a different, for example, I had a demo. If you go to the same SPFx demo, I have this demo too. One level up, there's a demo. I have this demo too, where in the SRC, this is pure TypeScript. I didn't even use any kind of React stuff, but I kind of mixed it. But what I did was a fetch. Fetch, go to this music, which is iTunes.apple.search, okay, which will return something, okay? If I put it here, for example, I'm gonna go Apple iTunes.search. I'm gonna go search for Teddy Afro or Telahun, okay? Right? Probably he might have CD in there. All right, I'm gonna go press enter. Should what it did was it downloaded the text, okay? Because they know. Because they kind of, but I can still mimic it. So this is, I got 15 results. Gareda. This is Talahun. If you can see a collection web URL. The preview is this, the audio preview. Let's check it. Is that real? Okay, let's check it. Yeah, it's real. There we go. Okay, something is coming from up, alright? Okay. You can use any kind of fiddler. I don't know. I kind of like my this Yark. I'm gonna paste it in here. Oh, not that one. I'm gonna go grab that guy. Oh shit. Okay, copy that URL because that kind of mimics this one. I'm gonna say HTTP, go to the item, find maybe I don't know. Okay, let me go with Palau. It says here get post whatever I wanna do. I don't have to do a headers, custom header. I'm gonna go do just a request here. So when I do this, look at that. I got a JSON back, right? So for example here, Kalahun, the Gereda. Another one here. The price, country is USA, currency is USA. So I can get all of that. Track price is 1.29, but the image is that guy. This is a image they used for the track. Let's see what it looks like. This guy, is it loud? I'm no clue because I don't watch music. I don't know which Talau it is. It's not the real Talau, but he has videos on there. He has on Apple, so probably he's a singer. It looks like a singer. Let me go here. Fikr Yazin Lemije. Okay, that one is good. Okay, we're gonna go grab that JPG. Most likely this is the real Talau I'm looking for. Okay, I already did. Still the same guy. All right. There are 50 of them. This is artwork. So I can grab this, right? Because I got the collection of objects, right? I can loop through it by using for loop and create that a little bit of beautiful HTML with the play. Okay, play a lot when I'm in Araga. Because up clicks to direct a little bit of JavaScript media player. And we can add it into the cart. If Apple pays me a little bit of it, I could sell it more than again. I'm not gonna be kind of, you don't have to know back end of it. This probably is still the same guy. Because a lot of this music unless otherwise you know exactly I think I know exactly radio license more the same guy all right, but anyways what this does is go get with the search term. I didn't define it, okay, because I put in a search and then that search has a query string parameter, read whatever you typed in, you click search. I'm gonna grab that one, process it, but I'm saying that the mode is course. So course says trust me, I'm valid guy, so that the Apple returns some data back to me. All right, cache, no cache, credential, same as origin. There is a header here. Just send me a JSON. Okay, so when I do here, I'm writing here. Okay, because I put it in the class, right? Class services, public search music. I'm passing a term. Okay, so I said new service search music, John, for example, and then I'll get 50 results back. But I have to learn exactly how the REST API works from that side for a paging purpose, if I want a paging more than 50. So, and then, because this is a promise, I can use a different way of handling a promise. You can do when it is done. So either you can say when it is done, but I kind of like then. Go find it. Once you get it, because it's asynchronous, it's not a synchronous call. It's just asynchronous. Go get it, which means it might fail somewhere, okay? So once you come back, the success, you might be successful or there might be some error, okay? I kind of do the error, which is I use arrow function in there, right? If it is error, just log the error. Simply quiet, as if nothing happens, okay? You see sometimes populate saying that, oh, something wrong happens. but you don't actually pass in all the error details to the user, which has no clue about what that says. Here we're saying response.json, which is a JSON formatted, a JSON to object, and then I log exactly the data that's coming back, which has this data has a property called results. I already know exactly how it returns because I played with it earlier. Ziga results የሚል አለው ይሄ. So I have to go to results, which gives me the array. Okay, array, if it is array, I can loop through. Okay, array በቅንፍ ሁለት በስኩዌር bracket. I can go get his name, his pictures, his audio to play a little bit of it and display it. Okay, so you can take a look at this. 901 ስለሆነ I have to stop it, or probably we can continue with a different session. I'm gonna stop here. ስሜ ተስፋ ይባላል። ይሄ እነዚህ ሪሶርሶች አሉ ኦፕን ናቸው። ይሄን ብቻ ሳይሆን I have a lot of open ኮዶች አሉኝ ጊታቡ ላይ. Some of them I kind of mentioned it. Probably those of you who has እንትን በጣም ጥሩ አንድ አፕ ያለኝ ለSharePoint people. Sometimes there is something called threshold limit. If you have a record over 5,000, list view doesn't display correctly. If you have a record over 5,000, especially once it comes to SharePoint Online, SharePoint On-Premise, we go in and change the threshold limit. Even if this is recommended, but it doesn't enforce you. If this SharePoint Online is cloud, so you have zero access to the server, which means you have to go with the rule. Okay, so 5,000 is the maximum, then which means you have to create some index, do kind of a lot of stuff, create views and the stuff. But I have a very nice list view all items. This is pretty nice, open source. I have all the documentation in it. The web part kind of connects to any web part, any list, and displays in a pretty nice way. You pick your columns, gives you such a kind of paging, and it is really, really super fast because I only displays page size, which means you set your page size in here. This is really nice. What you have to do is the manual documentation is in here. So you get this code. If you use a command, you just git clone this repo. This repo is equal to you. Then you go here, or you can simply download it. Okay? Download it. All right, and extract it. Once you extract it, you're just gonna issue npm install, which installs the dependencies, because this doesn't have underscore module. Okay, it only has all of the codes, package.json lock, because I have to lock my version of dependencies, test config, test link, gulp file, everything is normal. In the SRC folder, I have a lot of codes in here, but I'm busy. Okay, this is a huge project. You can use this open source, name it to your name, take my name out, don't give me a credit, then use it as it is. Okay, don't sell it though. I'm just kidding.